The Eastern Brownie. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. Jim is at the Boston Public Library. I'm home on my last COVID day. But we are streaming on youtube.com/GBH News. Hello.
I want you to know everybody at the library thinks that your Christmas lights on your Zoom are really fetching. They actually don't think
Thank you.
By the way,
I like them.
The governor-elect will join us right here at the library at 12 o'clock. She'll be with us for a half hour for Ask the Governor-elect. And you can call her, you can text her, or you can come down here, as a lot of people have already done, and go see our colleague, Mackenzie. Can you raise your hand, Mackenzie? And submit a question to her. And if she thinks it's fitting, it very well may be asked. So yesterday, I hope you feel better, by the way. You do, right?
I feel great. I have to, abundance of caution, wear a mask for 10 days.
Okay. Well, you're not wearing a mask, so that's fine.
Well, that's right. That's why I'm home.
Exactly. That's what I meant.
I think I should wear a mask at the library,
let's move
Jim.
on. By the way,
Okay.
for whatever it's worth, the last show of the year for me and Marjorie, we'll have fill-ins on Thursday and Friday, is tomorrow. Marjorie did not even know that we were not coming to work on Thursday, so judge accordingly.
I got an extra day. Let me tell you, I'm really excited about it.
As I was saying, yesterday when we discussed the January 6th committee, it was likely that there'd be criminal referrals against Donald Trump. Today, it is no longer likely. It is real. So we're going to start the show with Trump and the January 6th committee decision to refer criminal charges on four areas to the Department of Justice. Our number is 877-301-8870. You know, I almost can't read these. I mean, it's amazing. The potential charges: obstructing an official proceeding of Congress, conspiring to defraud the United States, making false statements to the federal government, and assisting in an insurrection. An insurrection. It's the first time in American history that Congress has recommended criminal charges against the former president. So what's your reaction between this, the criminal charges against Trump.org, the actual conviction, even as QAnon diehards making fun of him over the NFT stunt? This afternoon, the House Ways and Means Committee possibly voting, well, they will vote, to release his tax returns. Is Trump finally done? And even though there's a lot of enthusiasm yesterday for criminal referrals, now that it's a reality, are you ready for, and are you okay with, the Department of Justice indicting, trying, possibly convicting, possibly jailing a former president, even this former president? The number is 877-301-8970. We got to do a brief wrap of this thing at 3:15. Was it 3:15 yesterday or 2:15? 2:15. But in case people weren't listening, what was your takeaway from yesterday's 75-minute proceeding?
Listen, I think they did a great job showing that there was one person. Even Mitch McConnell admitted, although he didn't use Trump's name, that there was one person that was responsible for what happened on January 6th, and it was the former president of the United States. I think they showed it beyond a reasonable doubt. This is not a courtroom, obviously, and they showed it most effectively by having the people from Trump's inner circle, the people that were his, the attorneys he hired, Cipollone, Hirschman, those people, Hope Hicks, who didn't necessarily turn on him, but I think gave honest testimony, at least from what we saw yesterday. The people that were closest to him indicted him for his horrible behavior that day. Cassidy Hutchinson gave devastating testimony. I think that they proved the case.
I do too. By the way, there were a couple of moments, we're going to get to your calls and texts in just a couple of moments that will stay with me for quite a while. Two of the more impressive members of this committee. Here's Jamie Raskin, a congressman from Maryland. Was the ninth of nine to speak yesterday. He's the one that laid out all four of the criminal referrals, and here's one little piece of what he had to say.
Ours is not a system of justice where foot soldiers go to jail and the masterminds and ringleaders get a free pass.
And then there's the person, I think the consensus most impressive person of all of these 11 hearings, Liz Cheney, who, by the way, we should keep in mind, voted with Donald Trump 93% of the time on the issues.
Excuse me. Before you get to her, I just want to say what Jamie Raskin said is completely wrong. We are a system where the masterminds go free, and
that's a good point.
And the low-level people are the ones that go to jail. And that's one of the great problems with the American justice system, because it is too much about the quality of the legal talent you can afford to hire if you're rich.
So
Okay,
here
go ahead.
is Liz Cheney, who was spectacular throughout this hearing, at least in our estimation. Here's part of what she said in her opening statement during yesterday's final public hearing of the January 6th committee.
No man who would behave that way at that moment in time can ever serve in any position of authority in our nation again. He is unfit for any office.
You know, before we take calls, I know you are not exactly a big Trump fan, even though I know you love the NFTs, particularly him in the astronaut outfit. Are you okay with the former president of the United States going to jail? Which could be the end of this.
I don't think he will go to jail.
I didn't ask that. Are you okay if he does go to jail?
I would prefer that he not go to jail. I would prefer that he be prevented from ever running again. And
What if he agrees? What if his lawyers go to the Department of Justice in a month, a week, or whatever, after the Department of Justice hopefully brings these same charges and says, my client will agree, as you just said, to never seek federal office. He'll do that in writing.
I don't think
in
that's
return
enough.
for which you drop the indictments.
I think he needs to be criminally prosecuted.
Oh, you do?
Yes, I absolutely do. And I think one of the big problems with Donald Trump is that, as we've discovered, I think there was more hatred and kind of racism in this country than a lot of us foolishly thought there was. At least white people foolishly thought there was. I mean, I think black people knew the story much better from firsthand experience. But I think that he enabled a lot of very nasty people to kind of get on his bandwagon, and it's very difficult for those people to get off. And
That's
say,
not a crime, though, Marjorie. I mean, it
but
is
I'm
a
explaining.
small C crime.
But let me finish.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that he enabled that to happen, and so he does have this small group of people that still sticks with him.
Yeah.
But I think it will become smaller and smaller.
I hope.
And I think that when we have such a law-breaking criminal running the country, we have to do something very dramatic about it. And I think he will be, I hope, an aberration.
Let's take Richard in Framingham. You're first on Boston Public Radio. We're live at the Boston Public Library. Hey, Richard, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. What's up?
What's up is I'm not okay with him not going to jail. I'm not okay with the Justice Department policy that says he has to be impeached before he can be brought to court.
I don't think, by the way, if I may interrupt, I don't think that is a policy. But nevertheless, go ahead.
I thought they didn't indict or didn't investigate sitting president.
No, there's a memorandum which is not binding legally, but there's a memorandum from something called the Office of Legal Counsel, which says this is what Mueller depended upon, unfortunately, that you can't indict a sitting president, but he's no longer a sitting president. So there's nothing within the Justice Department that precludes Jack Smith and then Merrick Garland from prosecuting him to the full extent, as the saying goes.
Right, but that memorandum still allows Congress to get in the way of what needs to be done, which is getting rid of a criminal. I'm not satisfied unless I'd like to see him twisting by his ankle from a tree. Apologies to the tree, but I think we need to set an example. I think one of the worst things that ever happened to this country was when Ford pardoned Nixon.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Is it Jill Wine-Banks, who was the only woman on the Watergate prosecutorial team? I think that's her name. Thank you, Richard, for the call. I had her on TV a couple of months.
I should know that. I don't.
Maybe 6 months ago, and I asked her if she believed that Nixon should be prosecuted, and she said she was the only member of that team who thought Nixon should be prosecuted. And the reason she did is because she thought it would preclude former presidents from engaging in criminal activity. And look what might have happened had she gotten her way.
That's a good point. I mean, maybe she was right. I definitely think he has to be criminally prosecuted. And maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't think he needs to go to jail. But maybe I am being too nice to him.
Richard, thanks for
from
the
Framingham.
call. No, we just did Richard.
Oh, we did Richard.
Want
Sorry.
to do him again or no?
No, that's okay.
Once is enough. Okay, fine.
Once is enough. We have
You're
a lot
good,
of people
Richard.
on
Thank
the emails who think you should go to jail, though.
What are they saying?
Well, they're saying things like Trump is a criminal. The average citizen would have been in jail years ago. No one is above the law. He should be in jail already. He is a traitor, pure and simple. And the traitor part's a really important thing because he is. Most recently he's talked about we don't even need the Constitution. I mean, the Constitution is kind of overblown. But he did, attack the United States government, which I guess is a treasonous act.
There are a lot of texts that are referencing his lock her up kind of thing from days gone by. Hal in Boston, you're on Boston Public Radio. We're live at the Boston Public Library. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Excellent. What's going on?
Well, two quick comments. Hal from Boston. The first one is that I thought it was a real slap in our face when he skipped the inauguration. It's not brought up enough that he insulted the country by doing what he did. That was just so bad.
I agree with that.
And they do not mention that enough. That's just so important to make sure that's out there. But my second comment is a little while ago, he sent out these baseball cards that he got for a couple $1 million back.
NFTs for you, but go ahead. 4.45 million if he's to be believed.
Okay, so my point is that I wonder if he was foreseeing that he was going to be indicted, and that's going to be the money that he's going to use to pay the lawyers and stuff.
Well, I don't know if you know, Hal, he's raised hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Allegedly,
on the false election claims.
Right, and he's used for essentially personal purposes, potentially in violation of law. So he doesn't even need the $4 million.
He's just a grifter on every front.
No, yeah, I mean, he's elevated it to an art form. Would you not agree? Hal, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
But you know what Hal said about how he didn't show up for the inaugural?
Yeah.
I mean, Nancy Pelosi was in this interview by Jamie Gangel from CNN. It was great. She was out having Chinese food with Chuck Schumer, the senator from New York.
Stuffing her face with dumplings whole conversation.
Was eating the whole time.
It was great.
But he referred to the fact that she raised 5 children. I think she had 5 children in 6 years. No easy feat, even if you do have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And she has many, many grandchildren. And Schumer was saying how she always called him a petulant child, and that's kind of what he is. I mean, that would be kind of like a little boy who says, "Hey, I'm going to take my football and go home because I don't like that you beat me in the game," and that's kind of how he's operated.
Yeah, but you and I have had this discussion mostly off the air about 1,000 times. I don't think he's just a petulant child. I know that a lot of journalists don't like talking about this. I think he suffers from serious mental illness.
Oh, so do I.
His niece believes the same thing,
So do
Mary
I.
Trump, and I think Elon Musk does too. A lot of these guys in very high places, you try to explain their behavior. I think it's not the defense, but I think that's the explanation.
To go back to the niece's book, I mean, she talked about how the cruelty was the coin of the realm in the Trump household growing up. His father was an extremely cruel guy. They were unbelievably cruel to the brother that suffered from alcoholism.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it's just
Her
incredible
father, right?
How they practically tortured them. The brother was an alcoholic.
Right, but that was her father, Mary Trump's father, right? Was it not? Am I mixing up?
No, you're mixing them up.
Oh, I am,
she wasn't. Mary Trump's father. Yes, you're right. Was the alcoholic?
Yeah.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Sorry about that. And that Trump was taught to be cruel, and nothing mattered except winning, and nothing mattered except that he belittled the people around him, including his own family members. I mean, it was really a horrible household.
I'm laughing not at anything you just said, but you reminded me when we were talking about Trump as a kid. Every 4 years, Michael Kirk, who is a genius at Frontline, does this thing. I can't remember what it's called, where he does a 2-hour document.
The Choice.
He does a 2-hour documentary on each of the major party candidates. And the part that stuck with me about Trump as a young kid, do you remember Michael reports that Trump had a paper route?
Yeah.
How did he deliver the papers?
He was in the limousine.
He was
in the limousine. Driving around to drop the papers
limousine
off.
would stop at each house and he'd throw the paper in.
They had another great anecdote in one of these, I forget now where I read it, where when he was at the military school, which his father sent him to inexplicably, which was a very bad mistake because it kind of fine-tuned his instincts for cruelty. He was. They talked about how this other student there was being brutally hazed, and Trump got in a little trouble for it because he was supposed to be in charge of the anti-hazing group or something like that. And while he was being hazed, Trump was in his room listening to records, totally unfazed by it, unbothered
like January
by
6th.
it. Yeah. Tim in New Hampshire, hi.
Hey, Tim.
Hi, good morning. And first off, you two have done a fantastic job on the radio this year. I know it's been stressful with COVID and all the other things going on in the world. I'm a long-time listener, and just wanted to give you a shout-out.
Very nice guy. Thank you, Tim.
From the last show of the year.
Thanks.
So back to Donald Trump. I called in on the day of his inauguration. I called you guys. You did a show. You had Joe Malone on. And I was eclectic because this guy who had just written a check for $25 million to settle allegations of fraud and racketeering in Trump University,
right,
was about to become president. Joe Malone, for what it's worth, I'm glad you don't have him on the show anymore, thought that was perfectly okay. But I knew, and this was quite a few years ago.
Hey, Tim, can I interrupt you for a second? You have a horrible connection.
Yeah.
But so could you just get to the point? I don't mean that in a horrible way. I just mean we can't hear you well. So get to the crux of your thing, and so we get to hear you.
The crux of the thing is that we knew that Donald Trump was a criminal. We all crossed our fingers and hoped that things would turn out okay. And they didn't turn out okay.
No, they did not.
Once a criminal, always a criminal.
Well, Tim,
thanks.
Thank you for the call, and sorry for the bad connection. You know what people said all the time, too, when those kinds of things happen, the $25 million for his bogus university. Well, they all do it. And, yeah, a lot of politicians do lie, and a lot of politicians do take money, but not at this level. I don't think anywhere close.
Well, can I quarrel with you a bit? I mean, I said this yesterday. I mean, Trump, one of these criminal referrals is about getting involved, helping to assist, or whatever the appropriate verb is, in insurrection. As I said yesterday, there are roughly 140 members of Congress, Republicans, who aided and abetted that by voting not to certify the election of Joe Biden. That's participating by vote in an insurrection, is it not?
It absolutely is, and they've, as Cheney put it so well, you know, I'm going to paraphrase, but she said it again and again, that there was, one day Donald Trump will be gone, but your shame and dishonor will remain. And she's absolutely right. I mean, they look like fools, and it is incredible that people still vote for them, and that Kevin McCarthy could become Speaker of the House. I mean, talk about a man with no shame, and how low will he go? Apparently,
even lower, I believe. You know, by the way, we have that sound,
go.
and then we got to take a break. Here's that sound that Marjorie was referencing a minute ago, the brilliant sound from Liz Cheney from a few months ago.
I say this to my Republican colleagues who are defending the indefensible. There will come a day when Donald Trump is gone, but your dishonor will remain.
That's pretty powerful stuff, don't you think?
Yeah, I think she sort of nailed it over and over again.
I think she did, indeed.
She was a real hero of these hearings. Anyway, we're talking about yesterday's January 6th hearing, the culmination of 18 months of investigations, asking, do you think the president should go to jail? Do you want him to go to jail? How do you want this to turn out? You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming on youtube.com/GBH News.
In our community in 2022.
50 migrants were flown unannounced by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to Martha's Vineyard.
And we're revisiting those stories.
The community has really been rallying to provide temporary housing.
We put together 50 beds, blew up air mattresses. We're going to respond and we're going to support these families and provide some humanity.
Thursday on GBH's Morning Edition.
Support for GBH comes from you and Ocean State Job Lot, fighting hunger by donating food to regional food banks and local food pantries. Learn more at oceanstatejoblot.com. And City Year. City Year works to make a difference in the lives of students by placing AmeriCorps mentors in public school classrooms, helping students to feel supported and stay on track to graduation. More at cityyear.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Jim Browdy. She is Marjorie Egan. We're live from, we're not live from the Boston Public Radio. I am live. Marjorie's faking
that's right.
her COVID symptoms. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. And to answer your question, the governor-elect will join us as governor-elect for the first time at about 12:06 to take your questions and ours. And obviously, we're talking about the after effects of 4 criminal referrals yesterday by the January 6th committee.
You know, it's funny. We have a lot of emails saying that all these people do the same things. That we have a criminal running the country now. His name is Joe Biden. God. I mean, people are just stuck in this kind of. I'd be interested in if you texted back with a list of crimes that Joe Biden has committed. But in any case, an awful lot of the texters want him in prison. One of them says, "I would only like to see him in a prison if it's not a country club prison." I assume that refers to the many country clubs that the former president owns. Let's go to Paul in New York. Thank you for calling.
Hello, Paul.
Hi, guys. Long-time listener. Listen, I voted for Trump the first time, and then after that, I just couldn't do it, once I saw what he was doing.
Yeah.
And if he committed crimes, if it was me and I did some of this stuff that he's done, I'd be going to jail. So he should go to jail. And I'd be really worried about what he was going to do with the top-secret documents that he had. You know what I mean? Was he going to sell them? Did he just want to look at them?
Yeah.
That's what my biggest concern is,
Paul,
what he was going to do or what he already did with.
Paul, what caused you to not vote for him the second round? I'm just curious.
When I found out that I had to pay more federal income tax than he did.
Oh, that's
you know what I'm saying?
I know exactly
that
what you're
was the
saying.
final straw.
He paid no federal income taxes
straw.
11 out of 18 years, according to the New York Times reporting. And by the way, we may, as of this afternoon, know if we're going to get to see all of his tax returns. I think is it 6 years worth? Were turned over to the House Ways and Means Committee, thanks to the Supreme Court. Paul, thank you for your call. We really appreciate it.
But what's a funny thing? Even at the time of his tax break that was mostly to very wealthy people and to big corporations, polls showed Americans didn't want that. So an awful lot of people voted for Trump who didn't like that tax break, which he would probably hail as that and the vaccines, I guess. And maybe I'm missing something as the two big achievements of his presidency.
Well, maybe he might say the Abraham Accords, with
he could. That's right. That's
son-in-law.
Yep.
But I would tend to agree with you. By the way, and as you've said about 1,000 times on the show, the fact if he had promoted the warp speed creation of the vaccines and their availability, he might be in the middle of a second term as president of the United States. But he couldn't bring himself because of his denial about the severity of the... I mean, one of the things we haven't talked about at all in months, I use the adjective homicidal behavior of his during COVID, and I stand by it. I think it's fair to say there's several 100,000 Americans who are dead because of the behavior of the then president of the United States, who would not have been dead otherwise.
I just got COVID 2 weeks ago, and I had all the vaccines.
I know.
And I was hardly even sick.
Yeah. No, they work. That's the message. Let's go to Hans in Air, I believe. You're next on Boston Public Radio. Thank you much for calling. Hi, Hans.
Yeah, hi. This January 6th really has no standing. I mean, the fact that Liz Cheney and I think it was Kinzinger that would put on this, and the Republicans didn't have a choice to put on January 6th.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Yeah, they
Excuse
did.
me. Kevin McCarthy, let me just respond and then you can continue. Kevin McCarthy nominated 5 people. Nancy Pelosi said 2 of them, Banks and the infamous Jim Jordan, cannot be on the committee because of their disruptive behavior around Trump. The other 3 Republicans are welcome, and none of those 3 Republicans were Kinzinger or Liz Cheney. So, but continue, Hans.
That's one of the big talking points, though, that you hear over and over again on the right wing is that the Republicans are not allowed to have people on.
But go ahead, Hans. Go ahead.
Right wing, left wing, it doesn't matter. I try to go with the facts that I see.
Well, your facts were not facts. That was the problem, Hans.
All right. Political. As far as political goes, I see January 6th committee as just pure left wing, constantly going after a president who's been constantly attacked since he was elected. I mean, think of the Russian collusion hoax. Think of impeachment 1, impeachment 2. After a while, you see this and you realize, come on, how much
But Hans,
are we go
can I ask you a question? Hans, can I ask you a question, though?
Hans.
All right, go for
The people that put him in his legal grave were all his closest associates, and they were Republicans.
In front of the committee,
In front of the committee. They were all Republicans.
Many of whom work for him.
Yeah, so Kathy Hutchinson, which was how much, third hearsay testimony?
How about the Attorney General, for example? How about his campaign manager?
His lawyers, people that ran his
chief
campaign.
counsel. Hans, thank you for the call. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. 877-301-8970.
But I think Hans is typical of Hans is typical of what you hear from conservatives or from Fox or from the One American News, that that this was all a Democratic witch hunt. And the other thing you hear is that that Joe Biden is a criminal, and everybody does these kinds of things. And again, well, let's show the evidence, and no one can ever show the evidence, and their facts are usually incorrect.
Well, I don't know if it's an exception. I have no problem with the Republicans when they take over. The hope is that they focus on the issues that are front and center that matter to Americans. I have no problem if a piece of what they do is investigate Hunter Biden. I think
they can.
He's worthy of investigation.
Shady situation.
Right, and the issue is that he get whatever he got, $50,000 a month from that energy company in Ukraine because his father was investigating corruption. I mean, those are legitimate things. They're not legitimate as, center stage, forget everything else, but I think it's perfectly fine.
It is perfectly fine, but I don't want to be accused of whataboutism.
I agree with you.
But as we know, that the children of the former president
made $16 trillion in the last.
Well,
whatever.
it's just as not Ivanka's relationship with China while Trump was the president. It's they're the center of investigations. They have been so corrupt in running charities in New York City that they are barred from running charities in New York City because they took the money. So again, Hunter Biden may have done a lot of bad things, but I would say he's got a pretty high bar to get over Ivanka Trump, Jared Trump, and Eric Trump.
I agree with all that. Tom in Northridge, welcome to the show. You're on Boston Public Radio at the library. Hey there.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
A long-time listener. I'm finally pissed off enough to call.
Thank you. Okay. We're glad you are. What's up?
When I heard Jamie Raskin, I was incredibly insulted because Marjorie's right. This is a nation where the people at the top go free. And, I'm almost 70 years old, and I've seen it my whole life. I don't think Trump's ever going to spend a day in jail. They'll slap him on the wrist or something. That's about it.
Yeah. Tom, I think you raise a great point. It's one of the great tragedies of our legal system, although it is heartening to see Harvey Weinstein has just been found, and he's a very, very wealthy guy. Again, guilty in rape cases and sexual assault cases, which are almost impossible to get guilty verdicts on. So that's very heartening. Bill Cosby was, unfortunately, he got out, and O.J. Simpson, who had probably one of the most brilliant criminal lawyers, when he was accused of murdering his wife,
but
was
he's looking
acquitted.
for the killer, so that's okay.
But he ended up getting back in jail. So, it works well for people that have great lawyers.
So we got a break. By the way, we will, E.J. Dion from the Washington Post is going to join us a little bit later in the show. We'll continue this discussion there. And if the vote is taken by the House Ways and Means Committee about releasing Trump's tax records, we will bring it to you the second it is brought to our attention.
By the way, I just want to say really quickly, and if you doubt that, on your television show, that it works well for the wired and well-connected and rich, you've done many interviews with people, and Rachel Rollins, one of her great credit, has gotten how many men out of jail?
Quite a few. Almost all African-American or Latino.
All poor black men who went to jail, most for crimes they didn't commit because they had inadequate legal counsel.
Decades.
Corrupt police testimony. So it is, Jamie Raskin is really wrong. He never should have said that. Anyway, coming up, we're going to talk to comedian Jenny Slate. Her film, Marcel the Shell with Shoes, has just been nominated for Best Animated Feature Film at the Golden Globes. Even more exciting, she's returning to Boston Public Radio with her husband, the absolutely amazing writer and former guest of the show, Ben Shattuck. Our conversation with the two of them.
He's blushing, by the way, I want you to know. He is.
Well, he is.
I'm Pam Johnston, General Manager of News at GBH. What I am so looking forward to this holiday season is the fact that both Christmas and Hanukkah overlap. I love that. We celebrate all the holidays in my house, and it's always really special when we can celebrate Christmas and Hanukkah at the same time. Wishing you all a very happy and healthy holiday season.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Legal Seafoods, helping you celebrate the holiday season with seafood. You can give the gift of fresh fish with Legal Seafoods gift cards, available at their restaurant locations or online at legalseafoods.com/gift cards. And Boston Ballet, presenting the Nutcracker. Dare to dream big with New England's favorite holiday tradition. You can gather with family and friends to see it live at the Citizens Bank Opera House now through December 31st. Tickets at bostonballet.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browning, Marjorie again. We're live at the Boston. Well, Marjorie's not. Marjorie's home. We're still recovering. She's fine from COVID. I am live at the Boston Public Library. We're both streaming on youtube.com/GBH News. In exactly 30 minutes, the governor-elect will join us for a 30-minute version of Ask the Governor-elect, I guess you say. But first, we're joined now in our studio at the Boston Public Library by comedian Jenny Slate and artist and writer Ben Shattuck. Why are they joining us together? We're not 100% sure. What are they going to talk about? Sort of same. What we do know is that Jenny is an alum of shows like Saturday Night Live, Parks and Rec, Big Mouth, The Great North. Her film, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, as Marjorie just said, was just nominated for a Golden Globe. Congratulations, by the way. Ben is a writer whose latest book is 6 Walks in the Footsteps of Henry David Thoreau, or Thoreau. We'll get into that. I am sick of Marjorie talking about how great this book is. It's been nonstop for months since he was on. I was not here. He also owns and operates DeVol's. Is that how you pronounce this thing?
DeVol's.
DeVol's.
Yeah.
DeVol's.
Yes.
Excuse me. General store in South Dartmouth alongside his brother Will. And I should also mention they are married, which is one of the reasons, I guess, that they're here. Jenny and Ben, good to see you both.
Well, thanks for having us.
So nice to be here.
Thank you. It's great to have you.
And I feel terrible that I am not there to see you in person.
Should.
It's really upsetting. But before we get any further, I mean, I cannot think of a nicer little shell to be up for a Golden Globe than little Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. So, Jenny, tell us about this before we get any further. This is like kind of a big deal. We're all sick of Pinocchio, one of your rivals here. Enough of Pinocchio.
I'm with you.
Tell us about Marcel the Shell with Shoes On.
Well, you know, you don't have to step on one to elevate the other.
Oh, yes, you do. Yes, you do.
I would really hate to be on live radio and throw shade at one of the great filmmakers working right now, who I would love to work with one day.
Yeah.
So I think actually Pinocchio
We'll do it.
is
It's
really
okay.
wonderful.
Good.
I actually haven't had a chance to see it yet because we have a 2-year-old and we mostly stare at her all the time. But yeah, it's very exciting. I mean, I didn't know that the nominations were coming out, so I just kind of got a text message saying that it was happening, and I was home with our baby. There wasn't anyone to tell, so it's nice real talk.
Well, he
right
knows now, right?
Yeah, now he knows.
He does.
Yeah, you guys just broke the news.
So, Ben,
Yeah.
I know Marjorie wants to talk about the book ad nauseum yet again, but before, speaking of Marcel, do you think Trump should go to prison?
Oh, my gosh.
Do you think he should go to prison, yes or no? Okay, well, let's ask Jenny. Should he go to prison?
I liked Marjorie's answer.
What was it?
I was trying to remember Marjorie's
Marjorie
answer.
was She just
Yeah,
she
thank
wants
you.
him to be prosecuted to the fullest extent, and I feel the same way. And I hope that the entire Trump group gets exposed for what they did, and I would love to see the system work. And yeah, I'm also a fan of Liz Cheney's heroism during this time.
So, Ben, you've had a lot of time to think about it now. Do you want to reconsider your answer or no?
I say exactly what Jenny said.
I'm like, let him sit in Mar-a-Lago with his golden toilet and just deal with it. You know, I don't know. Like,
or sit on his golden toilet and just deal with it.
Yeah, or with it, you know, as his only companion. You wanted it so bad.
Did you read the thing in the Washington Post, by the way, about his life at Mar-a-Lago?
I have not.
It was in this weekend. It is brilliant. It talks about the isolation, how there are 2 or 3 sycophants, no aides, I mean, it is a really powerful piece. You should check it out.
Yeah, I think that's probably better, like a creepy falling down empty palace.
I'm with you. I like that too.
That'll hurt his ego.
Yeah, the Howard Hughes kind of thing going on there. So let's talk a little bit about Six Walks in the Footsteps of Henry David Thoreau. First of all, I supposedly it's not supposed to be Thoreau, it's supposed to be thorough, but I feel so effete and kind of ridiculous saying thorough. I keep saying Thoreau. So how do you work this out, Ben?
I think you're right, if not factually correct, because Thoreau is so distant to so many people, and I think there is, especially in his journals, he's such a warm, curious, strange, wonderful writer, and if we start, everybody knows him as Thoreau.
Exactly.
So I think that's fine. I think we want to make it more accessible. I mean, the name is so strange anyway. There's so many vowels. How do you even pronounce that? Nobody knows how to spell transcendentalism. There's so many parts of Thoreau's world that can distance people. So I would say the easier access, the better. And so Thoreau. But yeah, if you go to the Thoreau Society, they will all say Thoreau. And actually, whenever I would do a reading and somebody would come up to me and start talking about Thoreau, my ears would perk up because I know that that person would know a lot more about Thoreau's life.
But you describe what you did. I mean, describe what you did with this book, which is really fascinating and lovely, actually.
Yeah, well, it all started in a very dark, sort of low period in my life. I had just... I was carrying a boat across some very icy ground, had fell, and the top half-inch of my finger exploded off, and
That's
I was
great.
Yeah, so happy Halloween.
Thank you for having us before the
that's
governor.
it. Yeah. What
Governor
are we
elect.
going to talk about? Oh my gosh, right. Anyway, after this surgery on my hand, I was at home in bed on a lot of painkillers. I couldn't. My attention wouldn't hold for a novel, and I picked up this book my dad had given me for Christmas, these selected journals of Henry David Thoreau. And for those of you who don't know, he died at 44. He was so young, so before the Civil War, and he just wrote these journals without thinking of publishing them, and I was captivated by the writing, by the sensitivity. One of the first lines I read was he woke up in the morning, 1850s, and just said, the sound of the cricket in the morning is the sound of the earth still dreaming, which I just love.
Isn't that
And
great?
so that spring, I just started following him. Is the best way to describe it. And every walk was revelation.
Do you feel like you know him? And I when I say that, we've asked the same question of who we asked that question of? A good one.
Abraham Lincoln.
Doris Kearns Goodwin.
Doris
When you've written about Lincoln, you know him so intimately through your writing. Do you feel like you know him? And I don't mean know about him. Do you feel like you know Thoreau based upon what you did and tracking his tracks? Do you know what I mean?
There are so many conspicuous absences in Thoreau's writing. Like, I wish I knew more about his relationships, more about what he was thinking rather than what he was observing on the trail. But I've been really surprised at how my perception of him has changed. And yeah, I feel this weird tenderness towards him, because sometimes he gets batted around in the public eye as somebody who was maybe too distant, too academic, misanthropic, but I have this tenderness towards him.
One of the places you did, you and I have one thing in common, other than the fact we're fairly fond of her, but in sort of different ways. I hiked up Mount Katahdin in Maine. Mm-hmm. And when I went there...
I was there to see that.
I wish you're not the only one. It was a long walk. I was going to Camp Anabar. Do you know why it's called Camp Anabar in North Belgrade, Maine, I should say? Do you know why it's called Camp Anabar? No, you don't. Rubino backwards. What did you think of that? Does that impress you at all? Obviously not. Okay, we're talking...
I want to hear more about the hike.
I don't think so. Jenny Slate and Ben Shattuck.
Hold on. I just want to say, and then I'll move on. But the thing about your book is that we're all... It's a slow down kind of thing. And to me, a lot of us have become very much into walking. And when you talk about walking helps husk the dead skin of grief, or, talking about stopping, how walking smooths the mind, or mind is smoothed by walking, or something like that. I mean, I just found this so relatable, because we don't pay attention, right? And when you talked about looking at bubbles trapped in ice in a pond, I mean, all these things, I wish I paid more attention to those kinds of things.
Yeah, well, I think in many ways, walking is kind of what defines us as people. Like, we stood up and then we walked. And when you walk, you really do, I think, just through the practice of it. And a lot of authors and painters have dealt with this. You connect, you touch something very ancient about being human.
Yeah.
Do you know you're looking at him adoringly? Are you aware of that?
Are you listening
You
to
are.
what he's saying? I mean, it's like he's like 400 years old. Like there are no young men like this anymore.
That's right, and you got him, Jenny. You got him.
He's a total unicorn.
So are you like the number one power couple in Milton or wherever you are? That is what you are you not?
What's that?
Are you the number one power couple? I mean, you're Massachusetts residents.
Well, we lived down the street from Ben's parents. I think they're the power couple.
They are?
Yeah.
Right.
I think they're
And what's that?
Our whole I feel like our whole extended family is just some like parody of Bohemia. I mean, Jenny's dad is a poet. Her mom is a ceramicist.
A potter.
A potter.
Oh,
Yeah.
My mother is a gallery owner. My dad is a painter, and we have an actor and a writer. So
That's right.
Just,
And
it's
you've
not
got
power couple.
Duval's down in South Dartmouth, which is,
true.
I always thought it was in Westport. I guess it's in South Dartmouth, I learned.
Yeah.
But anyway, one of the coolest general stores, which I have been to many, many
You
times.
have?
I
Oh my
Yes, I hang out in that neck of the woods.
Do you know it's the oldest general store in America?
I just learned that this morning.
Yeah?
What's the significance of that?
To
anybody. No, I didn't mean that disparagingly. I mean,
it looks like it.
Some
It's
of us
very-
like old things, Jim.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
Um,
You and your brother Will actually run this deal?
Yeah, well, it's a store that my great-grandparents, we lived in the same
I know.
town since the 1800s, and it's where my great-grandparents used to go. And Duval's, what's the significance? I love walking in there. When we were doing some renovation, 1793, I mean, George Washington could have walked in there. And I was
Exactly.
sitting there on my iPhone and thinking, what will this be like in 200 and some odd years? What will this actually look like?
That's
You
pretty
just
good.
connect to a past that's really special.
Speaking of the great-grandfather, this house, is it the great-great-grandmother's house? The one that was the party animal down there?
Yeah.
That's haunted, that you guys are living in?
Well, I don't know. The house I grew up in Milton was haunted for sure.
What do you mean for
Really?
sure?
For
Tell
sure,
us.
everybody saw ghosts. Well, not me.
Well,
I'm the
that's-
only one that didn't.
Well, what does that say to you?
It says to me, and I can't believe I'm going to say this on the radio
Sure.
when both of our parents are listening, but I think that the ghosts knew that I would be too frightened and that I wouldn't have I wouldn't have any use for the information except for to just be terrified, and so that they showed themselves to everyone else because
Wow.
I already believed in them. I didn't need to see it.
Huh.
Yeah.
So what were you asking about the partying? What were you asking?
Well,
Maura?
always throwing these big parties, and people dreamed about the parties in the house.
That's
yeah,
right.
that's true. In the house where we live now. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Was a
house we
dance
live in was
hall.
built as a dance hall in the early 1900s when there was no Netflix and people were just looking for something to do in the evening, so they invited all their friends over. And it is one big room that we've added, bedrooms to and all of that. But it is, people have had wild dreams in that house
They
about...
say they do.
They say they do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
like
do they
you just imagine
hear-
the ghosts dancing.
That's what they hear. They hear the dancing.
Yeah, the sound
How
of
cool is that?
distant...
I'm not
Yeah.
believing that for a minute. Can we get back to you for a minute in this Marcel deal?
Sure.
So there's also, I didn't even understand this. I'm reading these stories about, we talked about the Golden Globes, and it's a huge deal, and you don't want to disparage Pinocchio, which I understand.
Yeah.
The Academy Awards, the Oscars.
Yeah.
There was this big debate about whether or not you could even be nominated in the animation.
Right.
Could you explain it in English what the problem was?
I can try my best. I think that you have to prove that your film is, I believe, I might be wrong, but 70% animated, and I think that some films don't qualify if they have like a certain percentage of live action footage. Our film is stop motion animated. It's
Right.
entirely animated. Every scene contains Marcel, and he is not real. He's animated.
I knew that.
So I think that's why.
And it did qualify.
It
eventually.
did qualify.
So how
Yeah.
excited? I mean, that's both those things are huge.
Yeah.
I mean, huge.
Yeah, it's a really big deal, and I think the reason why it matters so much is not just because it's a marking on the road of success or something like that. Like these are obvious moments of potential prestige or something. But that I stand behind the work. I really like it, and sometimes you can get recognition for something that you're like, I don't know that was my best, or I didn't really mean to do it like that, or I have no idea how this happened. But for this one, I think we tried really hard to make exactly what we made, and it's the truest representation of myself as a creative person and human. So I'm like, yeah, let's get in there.
That is really pretty.
For people that haven't seen Marcel or don't know what
Who's
Marcel.
not seen Marcel?
Well, I'm sure there are a lot of people who haven't
Okay.
seen Marcel, and Marcel the Shell with Shoes on. Can you explain a little bit about Marcel and maybe say something to us as Marcel?
She must hate this.
Sure. I mean, the film it's not a mockumentary, because I think mockumentaries usually are like they're meant to make fun of the documentary form, sort of. But it's a stop motion animated film in the style of a documentary about this little individual named Marcel, who is a shell with 2 shoes and 1 eye. And he just sort of has a voice this. He just talks like this. And it's about his journey to try to find his family, who he's been separated from. And it sounds like a kid's movie, but it's really a movie for all ages, for sure.
And by the
has
way,
a little piece of
sorry.
lint as a plaything.
Yes, and his grandmother, he has one family member left with him by his side. It's his grandmother, whose character is named Nana Connie, which also happens to be my grandmother's name. And she's played by Isabella Rossellini, who is truly incredible.
And you know what they announced, which was actually quite beautiful, I think, as a tribute to you? Should you win, they're actually going to add a non-white person to the board of the Golden Globes, which would be huge, don't you think?
Let's hope.
It's about time.
Let's hope. There's a lot of work that needs to
We're
be done.
talking to Jenny Slate and her husband, Ben Shattuck. Can I say something else about you? I don't think I said this on the air. Did I say this on the air? I read this History of Sound thing of yours. Which, could you describe, is that called a novella? What is that thing, a short story?
That's a short story.
Sure. Why are you making a face?
An excited face. That short story.
Unbelievable. Could you tell the story briefly?
Yeah, well, that short
please.
story will be in a collection that'll come out next year.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'll have some fiction out. How to describe that story? It starts in Boston. 2 young students at the New England Conservatory in the early 1900s who meet and go on a folk song collecting journey through Maine, separate and come back, and those wax cylinders that they've recorded on come back to one of the characters much later in life, and he relives that summer. It's a love story.
It's a beautiful piece.
About, I think if I were to describe the theme in a nutshell, it's about realizing you're grieving something when it's too late. And about the sort of echo of nostalgia running through your life.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
So if Marjorie were here and saw you holding hands, she'd probably turn to you, Jenny, and say, so how did you 2 meet? What's the deal? What's the genesis of this?
And we want to hear about the wedding, too, with the 23 people in the backyard. So go ahead. We
I
want to hear
have no idea what we're going to talk about.
We didn't know why we were here either.
We're still not 100% sure, but it's going fine.
Someone asked us to show up, and also,
you did.
yeah, it came through my email. So even in the car ride here, Ben was like, "Are you sure I'm supposed to come with you?" And I was like, "Well, it can't stop now."
Yeah, we want the love story.
Apparently we met.
Apparently.
Over a decade ago, when Ben and some of his friends crashed a New Year's party at my house.
Meaning you don't even remember that?
I remember the men coming in and crashing the party. That
we
this
got kicked out.
Weird group in Brooklyn. These all 5 handsome young men came in, just drank all the liquor, and somebody kicked them out, and then they threw snowballs at our house. And I went at the time when Ben told me this, 2 weeks after we started dating, and I was like, "You were the guys at that party?" And I looked back in my Twitter account, which is now deleted. But at the time, I was able to look back and see that I had tweeted about these guys who had come in and ruined our party. But anyway, then we met a decade later, and we met in Arctic Norway.
Yeah,
did?
I was
Arctic Norway.
I was living
We
in
did.
Holland for a couple years, and Jenny was filming in Arctic Norway above the Arctic Circle, and my friend had written the screenplay for that, and so it was,
But then it took a year for us to date.
Huh. Why
Yeah.
was that exactly?
Well, he chopped off his finger.
That does slow things.
I had to go on all
terrible
Thoreau's
mood.
books first. Yeah, I had to process my grief.
Yeah, you're not like super romantic seeming. You know, he was more gloomy because of his finger.
You dumped. By the way, you got off Twitter long before Elon Musk. What was this?
No, I just did. Yeah.
Fill us in.
I
mean,
don't know.
what was
It's a mess in there. I don't like the way he's acting. I don't want to really be a part of it, and so I just hopped off a couple weeks ago. Yeah, no thanks.
Okay, I want to know
no
why
need.
I want to know why 23 people at the wedding. You did a very tiny wedding. Was this COVID, or was it just you thought it was more romantic?
Well, it ended up I'm talking
I
a
would
lot,
do it
honey,
again
but
like that.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
We had a larger wedding planned.
Yeah.
And I did still have a gigantic wedding dress, and we had a full bar. But
Yeah, so
it was the
planned
Omicron.
a big wedding, and then that couldn't happen.
Yeah.
And so we kept all the caterers, the cocktail, and
flowers.
the flowers, and we had the florist filled the ceiling with flowers because it was flowers for a 200-person wedding.
Oh, we
so
should-
it was like we were at Marie Antoinette's house for dinner or
You
something.
should say it was
crazy.
Laura Jean Florals.
Right.
Laura Jean, who's in Cambridge. You guys should check out her flowers.
So you
It's
had
incredible.
to downsize like just shortly before the wedding. Then it sounds like.
Yeah, and also people were like, "We are not coming." we lost a bunch too.
And it was
we
fantastic.
only have a minute or two left here. Can we get back to Margie? Wasn't that interested in it? Obviously, I am. This Musk thing. I mean, a lot of us are hypocrites. I being at the top of the list. No, I'm serious. I mean, so was there a one thing, or was it an accumulation of dastardly deeds by this character that caused you to not do this thing?
I guess it was after listening to an episode of the podcast Hard Fork, just hearing about the bullying that just really, and I'm not saying Facebook is any better. I don't have Facebook, but I do have Instagram, so I'm still there, you know, and I just was like, I don't need to use this. I can leave. I should leave. I just didn't want to be a part of it.
Well, one last question. Can you imagine a woman who decided to leave Twitter, who is married to, I don't know, a guy who hasn't left Twitter? Can you imagine that circumstance? Can you? You can't, right? Exactly.
I don't even know if Ben knows that he still has
Do you know you're still on Twitter? I checked it out
I
this
forgot
morning.
my password.
That is the most feeble excuse I have ever heard. Can I tell you something? We love you both, and we're really thrilled to see you both.
Thank you so much
for your
for
time.
coming in. We've been speaking with Jenny Slate and her husband, writer Ben Shattuck. Jenny Slate, alum of Saturday Night Live, Parks and Recreation, Big Mouth, and of course, her film Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, just nominated for Golden Globe. Ben is a writer whose latest book, and you really should check this out, is 6 Walks in the Footsteps of Henry David Thoreau. It is a beautiful book, and if you're in South Dartmouth, be sure to get to Duval's General Store, which he owns alongside his brother. Thank you both for coming in. Coming up, Governor-elect Maura Healey joins us live at the Boston Public Library. She'll take our questions and your calls. If you've got a question for her, you're welcome to text or call at 877-301-8970 or come down to the library and ask her in person. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming on youtube.com/GBH News.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues is up ahead with Jim Brady and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio. Right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you and New England Dental Group, committed to helping you stop hiding your smile by offering a variety of dental implant solutions to replace missing teeth in one of their 8 locations. Learn more at newenglanddentalgroup.com. Join actor John Lithgow and journalist Maria Hinojosa as they discover their ancestors who thrived in North America long before the birth of the United States on an all-new Finding Your Roots, tonight at 8 on GBH2.
Trusted. Local. News. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you.
I'm Jim Brady, head on Boston Public Radio. We're live at the Boston Public Library. Governor-elect Maura Healey will be with us in a couple of minutes to take our questions and yours. Got a question yourself? Call or text 877-301-8970 888-301-8970, or hurry up and get over here and ask her face to face.
Also got GBH Executive Arts Editor Jared Bowen joining, and in her latest restaurant venture, celebrity chef Tiffany Faison winds the clock back a few decades with a disco roller rink themed pizza shop at Tenderoni's in the Fenway. She'll stop by. Plus, E.J. Dion from the Washington Post on January 6th and more. Will bring it to you all live ahead at the Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The January 6 House Committee is preparing to soon release a full report on its investigation into the pro-Trump attack on the U.S. Capitol nearly 2 years ago. At its final public hearing this week, the panel urged the Justice Department to consider prosecuting former President Donald Trump on 4 counts, including the rare charge of inciting or aiding an insurrection. NPR's Domenico Montanaro reports on what the criminal referrals could mean for Trump's 2024 presidential campaign.
After 1,000+ interviews and testimony from dozens of people close to Trump, the committee is referring him to the Justice Department to pursue 4 charges. They include obstruction of an official proceeding and conspiring to defraud the United States. The referrals have no legal weight, but the committee has had a political impact. The issue of preserving democracy has risen in the polls as a top concern. Several of Trump's election-denying candidates lost in swing states in the midterms, and independents moved more toward blaming Trump for the riot. Trump is arguably at his most vulnerable point since leaving office, though he remains the frontrunner for his party's nomination in a multi-candidate field. Domenico Montanaro, NPR News, Washington.
In a statement, Trump dismissed the criminal referrals and said his supporters would rally around him. The Republican and Democratic negotiators in Congress hammering away at a compromise on government spending released the $1.7 trillion omnibus appropriations bill early this morning, setting up a dash to pass the measure this week and avert a potential government shutdown. The omnibus includes more than $772 billion for non-defense discretionary programs and more than $850 billion in defense funding. The Texas border city of El Paso is still preparing for the arrival of thousands of migrants, even though the U.S. Supreme Court has temporarily stopped border restrictions under a pandemic-related health order from expiring tomorrow. Aaron Montes from member station KTEP reports that under Title 42, most migrants are quickly expelled, including those seeking asylum.
Officials in El Paso are scrambling to find more shelter space for the hundreds of migrants arriving daily. They announced plans to convert a large city-owned building into a shelter. As many as 2,500 people a day have turned themselves into Border Patrol. Many have been released to await immigration hearings. Mayor Oscar Leeser said he expects thousands to make their way across the border to El Paso. He called on the federal government to do more.
Right now, what we're looking at is a Band-Aid to a bigger problem, and it's something that the federal government will have to work out because we can't continue to go at this rate.
The city and county are getting federal funds to help with the humanitarian crisis. Hundreds of migrants have been sleeping on the streets in frigid temperatures. I'm Aaron Montes in El Paso.
The Dow is up 100 points this hour. You're listening to NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro in Brookline today. Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker joining 24 fellow Republicans in other states in asking the federal government to end the emergency declarations associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. GBH Radio's Katie Lannon has more.
The group of governors, led by New Hampshire's Chris Sununu, make the case in a letter to President Biden that the country has moved past the emergency phase and it's time to get back to life as normal. The governors say states are facing financial strain from the public health emergency's Medicaid coverage requirements. Their request comes as the Biden administration is also planning to make COVID-19 tests, treatments, and vaccines more available for a winter uptick in cases. On Beacon Hill, I'm Katie Lannon, GBH News 89.7.
The Steamship Authority is waiving cancellation and change fees for Friday and Saturday this week with a storm in the forecast. The steamship issued a statement saying that disruptions are likely and travelers should seek alternative travel plans to get to and from the islands for the holidays. National Weather Service is predicting high wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour for Friday and for the Vineyard as well as Nantucket. So if you are heading to the islands for Christmas and Christmas Eve, you may want to make alternative plans. In sports, the Celtics host the Pacers at the Garden tomorrow. The Bruins host Winnipeg there on Thursday. In the forecast, sunny and 40 today, clear mid-20s overnight, sunny 41 tomorrow, cloudy mid-40s on Thursday, 37 degrees in Boston. I'm Henry Santoro, GBH News 89.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Total Wine & More, where shoppers can explore over 8,000 wines, 2,500 beers, and 4,500 spirits. More at TotalWine.com. Spirits not available in Virginia or North Carolina.
Here's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. I apologize, I'm not there. I'm on my last day of mask wearing after a mild case of COVID. We are streaming on youtube.com/GBH News. Hello again, Jim.
By the way, I want you to know our next guest said, "Where is Marjorie?" In any case, we're joined now by our next guest, who just happens to be the governor-elect Maura Healey, for a special Ask the Governor-elect here at Boston Public Radio. Welcome and congratulations, Governor-elect Maura Healey.
Yeah,
Thrilled
thank
to have
you.
you.
Where did you go, Marjorie? I saw your picture.
I know,
oh,
I
there you are.
disappeared, but now I'm back with my Christmas lights.
With your
I'm
lights,
back.
you look great.
Hello, Governor-elect Healey.
I'm
Thank
so
you.
happy to be with you, Marjorie and Jim, and everybody here at the Boston Public Library. Thanks for having me back.
Well, we're thrilled. We're thrilled to have you here.
Marjorie's
Governor
milking
Healey.
this COVID thing for all it's worth.
I'm
I just
milking
want
it.
to say
That's
for
right.
whatever.
That's right.
But
That's
in any
right.
case.
So I don't call you Governor Healey. I guess
Governor-elect
I call you
Healey.
still Governor-elect Healey is the correct term. But I was telling Jim this morning, astute political observer that I am. I remember. You may not remember this, Governor-elect Healey, but a while ago when you were running for Attorney General, you and I had lunch at the Stockyard, which is across the street from WGBH, and I thought, well, this woman is an up and coming politician, and she's a very impressive woman, but she's never going to beat Warren Tolman, who was then the state senator running for Attorney General. So here you are now, the governor-elect of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Obviously, I missed something big time, Governor Healey, or Governor-elect Healey.
No, you didn't miss anything. I do remember that was a fun lunch. I remember the Stockyard is a great place. We used to go there in
I think
college.
there was a lot of great gossip, as I recall.
There's probably that too. But it's funny, we met. I was not even a politician at that time because I had yet to be elected to anything.
That's right, you were a lawyer.
So I was a lawyer looking for a position. But a lot has happened over the last 8 years. I'm incredibly grateful, particularly to my team in the office, who's worked incredibly hard on a number of fronts. It's been a privilege to be Attorney General of this great state, and it is a real honor now to be taking this on. And I am really looking forward to what we can do. Kim Driscoll and I, and the state's going to love Kim Driscoll. She's going to be a fantastic lieutenant governor, and we've been busy with transition and the work there, but really excited. And, as you know, Margie, I talked to you that day about it. I did not grow up wanting to be a politician. I did not contemplate that, imagine that, but life evolved, and I've enjoyed every opportunity that I've had, and hopefully we can move things forward here in our great state.
We'll get to the calls and the text in about a second. We hope you're going to keep them short because a lot of people want to speak to the attorney. Well, you are the Attorney General.
What am I? It's
How many
so awkward
How many
right
times
now.
did you sue Donald Trump, Governor-elect Healey?
Enough to do what we needed to do, which was to protect the residents, protect the businesses, and protect our values and freedoms here in Massachusetts.
So
I don't know how many times.
You obviously followed the January 6th hearing yesterday. Are you okay, assuming this leads, and we know that has no legal consequence, the Department of Justice decides to indict, he's convicted at a trial and possibly sentenced to jail. Are you okay with the former President of the United States potentially serving time?
Sure, if the facts and law warrant it. And I think there's been a need for real accountability here. I think that Liz Cheney and members of that committee have just done such a tremendous job and are to be commended. And at the end of the day, what's important is that the truth come out and that those who need to be held accountable, particularly when we're talking about for the sake of our democracy, be held accountable.
Are you convinced, based upon the testimony you've seen, that he is guilty of the crimes that Jamie Raskin laid out yesterday?
I think he may be guilty of any number of things. What bothers me most is what he's done to our institutions, to people's role, to people's view of democracy, to our place in the world, and also to the contribution to tremendous division, polarization. Much of that achieved through the weaponization of misinformation, disinformation, and to me, that's one of Donald Trump's greatest affronts, and always will be. Look, I am in the business right now of leading this state with optimism, with urgency, and we are going to do just that. And I think that Massachusetts has an important role to play as we move forward in this country. But I am really focused on the job, and also, mindful. I think, after the last few years, that democracy is precious, and we need to work hard collectively to do what we can to contribute and further that.
Let's take some calls for the governor-elect. Jasper in Marlborough, you're on with the governor-elect, Maura Healey. Welcome to the show.
Hello. So I have a quick question. I'll try to keep it brief. It's in terms of community outreach and public health. I wanted to ask a question, Governor-elect Healey. What's the plan in terms of helping communities to prevent, screen, all that kind of stuff in terms of healthcare?
And it's Jasper?
Jasper, yes.
Nice to hear from you, Jasper. In Marlborough.
Marlborough.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling in. Look, public health is just so important, and I certainly want to be looking at the ways that we as a state can help support our communities in efforts around public health. Obviously, we've got some immediate and ongoing needs with respect to infection and COVID and all of that. I had a great briefing this morning with Secretary Sutters and her team. But I think more broadly speaking, there's a lot we can and must continue to do and can do more of within public health. And I think you're right to point to where can the state be a partner with our local public health authorities? Where can the state be a partner with communities when it comes to education and prevention? And also just outreach and engagement. So I'm excited about those synergies that are out there, and public health is certainly so foundational to the health and well-being of communities.
Jasper, thanks for the call. We have somebody at the mic at the Boston Public Library. I believe it is, who am I taking first? Oh, Maggie. How are you? Pickleball Maggie, for those who do not know. It's a long story. Maggie, you're on with the governor-elect.
Thank you. Governor-elect Healey, I am proud to have you as our governor-elect, and I'm also proud to say I voted for you.
Thank you. Thanks, Maggie. Are you a pickleball player?
I am a pickleball player.
Nice. Where do you play?
I'm trying to educate Jim.
Have you not tried it?
No. Are you
It's
kidding
good.
me? I don't think so.
I actually brought my paddle in today to at least show
She
him
did.
what a paddle
She did.
looks
What's your
like.
question for the governor-elect?
Oh, you don't want to talk about pickleball. Well, pickleball is great, so good for you, Maggie.
Thank you. My question is, what are your top 3 priorities, and what organizations will you enlist to address them?
Great question, Maggie.
Thanks, Maggie.
I think that right now my priority has been setting up a leadership team for the various cabinets and the like in this administration. But I have to say my top priorities are affordability. Making sure that Massachusetts is a place where if you live here, you can stay here. If you come here to study or to work, you can stay here. If you're an employer here or a business here, you can stay here and grow here. And that gets to issues of housing, which is why I've been really strong about needing to drive down the cost of housing by increasing housing production, fixing our transportation system, dealing with the high cost of childcare and the like. But focusing on that is really important. It also goes to something I'm very focused on, which is Massachusetts' competitiveness. Our state in the country, our state in the world. Massachusetts is home to some of the finest institutions and research and innovation. We have a history of going first on so many fronts, from universal health care to marriage equality. We have amazing human capital, intellectual capital, and the like. The key to our competitiveness, though, is going to be harnessing all of that. Years ago, Governor Patrick made a big bet on life sciences. We are now the global epicenter for life sciences. We need to make that next big bet, maybe a series of bets. I've talked a lot throughout the course of the campaign about what's possible with climate tech. We've got the ability here in our state, unlike any other state in this country, to create a climate corridor of tech, innovation, investment, manufacturing that stretches all the way from the Berkshires to Barnstable. That's exciting. And so focusing on how we make this state a more vibrant state, a more attractive state, a more desirable state for our residents and for those who want to come and live here and businesses to stay here. Because ultimately, that's about creating growth opportunities around this state. And the third thing, I think, urgently is around climate. I announced yesterday the nation's first cabinet-level climate chief. And that person, is terrific, Melissa Hoffer, will sit across all secretariats and be directly responsible, reporting to me and the lieutenant governor, on how we're driving climate policy through all of our agencies. Because unless you do that through all aspects of government with intentionality, with focus, you're not going to get to where we need to be in terms of meeting our climate goals. So that's a really exciting position and reflective of where I am in terms of my priorities around climate.
Governor-elect, if I may, following up on the affordability issue, you supported question 1, which will add anywhere from $1 billion to $2 billion a year, education and transportation. You also have supported, I think it's fair to call them the Baker tax cuts, which could cost as much as $1 billion. You told us on the air before the election you would veto any attempt to divert any of that billion plus from question 1 away from those two subject matter areas. Could you do the math for us? If that's going to raise $1 billion plus, you want the legislature to cut $1 billion plus in taxes. That's or $1 billion, and it's roughly a wash. Where does the money come from to do what question 1 mandates?
I don't view it as a wash. I think these are different things. On the one hand, we're talking about tax reform, and we're talking about something I support, which is to lower taxes for seniors, for renters, for low-income, middle-income folks, to do something that I promised to do around tax credits, $600 per child, per family in the state. Also raising the threshold of the estate tax. We are way behind other states when it comes to the estate tax. And this makes a real big difference to people who, and not wealthy people, but people who are looking to sell homes that have appreciated over time here in this landscape. So that, Jim, is tax reform. And it will, I believe, get us in the direction we need to go in terms of providing the right relief, progressive tax reform to people who need it the most, while also creating more growth opportunities. Question 1, we're going to look at that right now. We're going to have the Department of Revenue obviously go through and look at the revenues that will be coming in through that, and that will take some time. I have been very clear that I respect the will of the voters. And the voters voted to allocate that money, to make sure that money was to be directed. Ultimately, it's up to the legislature, but to have that money directed towards important investments in transportation, education, and infrastructure. And as governor, I will continue to insist on that and ask for that. And I look forward to conversations with legislative colleagues about that as we move forward.
But if they attempt to go outside of those categories or to decrease existing spending,
I've already said with
veto
respect to those categories, look, in my I guess still ongoing capacity as Attorney General, our office actually had to look at that issue and look at the actual question. And we believe that under the law, it's clear that that money, those revenues do need to go, indeed, by law, to education, transportation, and infrastructure.
Let's go to Roslindale. Jim
and
is
Margaret asked, Maggie asked a question about which organizations, which groups we're going to want to work with. And my message to the people across the state, we want to work with everyone. We want to work with everyone. This is a team effort. This is, how we're going to get things done in this state is by working together with organizations, with partnerships, public, private, with individuals, with associations, you name it, all across the state. And that is just a welcome call that I wanted to put out today.
Where do you want to go, Marjorie?
Jim from Roslindale. Thank you for calling.
Hey, Jim.
Hey, how are you? Good afternoon. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thanks.
And
Thank
hello,
you.
Governor-elect.
Hey there.
You touched on some of the climate just a few minutes ago, but I just wanted to ask in terms of the climate chief, how that was going to differentiate from the work being done by the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. I'm kind of excited about it. Just curious how that's all going to fit together.
Well, Jim, let me tell you this, and thanks for the question. Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs is critically important. And the legislature years ago set out goals that we're going to achieve as a state. I also set out goals during this campaign of 100% clean energy by 2030, electrified, 100% public transportation by 2040, and any number of things. And certainly that secretariat is going to be absolutely key in helping us drive forward and meet those goals, as well as doing any number of important things that they have in their portfolio. But Jim, we're in a day and age. Climate is about transportation. It's about employment. It's about infrastructure. It's about public health. It's about emergency preparedness and security. It's about energy. It's about so many things. And that's why I bring a view to this that we're not going to be where we need to be in terms of climate policy unless we have that driven with intention by somebody who is singularly and solely accountable to me for that, who's going to work with, not boss around, but work with all of the various cabinet members and their teams, the secretariats, so that we're seeing climate policy, whether it's in education or community and economic development and housing, across the board. And that is the only way I think that we are going to get there. And I want us to be the leader in climate policy and climate action as a state. It's a moral imperative. It's an economic imperative. It's also, as I say, when I think about our ability to create this climate corridor of tech and innovation, it's also a huge economic opportunity for us. And I'm really excited about that. But that's why I created that position.
Governor-elect, there's been some criticism of the Department of Public Utilities because of arguments that they are, from environmentalists, that they are too tied to the fossil fuel industry. Christine from Arlington is a member of something called Mothers Out Front, and she's very interested in whom you will be appointing to the Department of Public Utilities and if those people will favor renewable energy over fossil fuels.
Well, thanks for the question, Christine, and love Mothers Out Front. My office worked a lot with Mothers Out Front, particularly their advocacy around gas leaks and other important issues. And really, they're an organization that's out there doing incredibly important work, advocating and pushing us in the move towards renewables and a cleaner, healthier environment. Look, I think that's really important. I think that anybody who is going to work in this space has to be on board with the absolute necessity of us moving as quickly as possible away from fossil fuels towards renewables and alternative energy sources. So I will make announcements when I'm ready when it comes to DPU and other entities, but certainly that's important and it's got to be part of the sensibility of anybody who's going to work on the team.
Sean is at the mic in the Newsfeed Cafe or whatever this area is. But in any case, Sean, you're on with the governor-elect. Welcome.
Hi, Jim and Marjorie. I'm really happy to be back at the library. It's been a while.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Governor-elect Healey.
Hi, Sean.
My question is, I'm a community college student. I'm a journalism major. I've been part-time for a few years at this point. Are there any notable plans of yours that you have that would have a positive impact on community college students or community college faculty and staff?
Oh, great question. And we love our community colleges, and our community colleges, both students and educators, need support. And so we've talked a lot about this during the course of the campaign. And incidentally, I named my Secretary of Education the other day, Pat Tutwiler, who's just going to be terrific. And one of the things we've talked about is the importance of supporting our community college students. There are too many community college students out there right now across the state who are dealing with real issues of food insecurity, housing insecurity, can't afford childcare in many instances, or the cost of transportation. One of the ways to make sure that people are able to get through and make use of our community colleges is to make sure that we remove some of those barriers. And that's important funding and an important investment that we need to make. We also need to make sure that our community colleges are the gateway, are the pipeline to jobs that are readily available today. As so many out there listening today know, we've got so many industries that are struggling to find people for work. And one of the things we want to be really intentional about is making sure that our programming that's existing through community colleges is in alignment and in support of because there are jobs to be had with industry and with what's available today. Another thing with community college, Sean, is that we have this program called Early College in the Commonwealth, where high school students, particularly a number of students in our gateway cities, have an opportunity to get not only a high school degree, but actually go to community college while they're in high school and earn credits towards a community college degree, which can get them that much further to a 2-year degree or on the road to a 4-year degree if they choose. And this is really important in terms of education and in terms of our workforce and where we need to be. So I am really mindful, just like we're here today, Boston Public Library, Boston, Massachusetts, we're home to the country's first public library. That's really cool, really important. In Franklin, not in Boston, but we love Boston too. Franklin, Mass.
I didn't know there was a Franklin. No, I'm only joking. Go ahead. Sorry.
But we're also
No
home
offense.
to the first public school in the country, right? So we've got to really make sure we live up to those values and those promises.
Thank you for the question. I have a question for you. I am a sort of a transparency nerd. The last few governors who preceded you claim full exemption from public records laws. I'm sure you know we've discussed this in the past. We're the only state in the country where the judiciary, the legislature, and the governor's office claim full exemption, only state from public records laws. You told us in 2015, I'm sure you remember it well, you didn't believe in blanket exemption. So I assume 2 questions. One, will you confirm that you will not claim exemption from public records laws as governor, and we support legislation that at least cuts back whatever exemptions the legislature and judiciary believe they have?
Yes and yes.
Oh, well, that takes care of that. Okay.
Let's go to Megan and Milton. Thank you for calling, Megan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hi.
Governor-elect Healey, as the lawyer who challenged DOMA and the first gay governor of Massachusetts, what did it mean to you to see President Biden sign the Respect for Marriage Act? And do you think we'll ever get to see the Women's Health Protection Act passed too?
Oh, Megan, good afternoon, and thanks for the question. That was an emotional day last week to see President Biden sign that into law, and also to see friends and trailblazers like Mary Bonato there at the White House celebrating. Mary, of course, was lead counsel in the Goodrich case. She and I were co-counsel in our successful challenge to DOMA years ago. And also to see that couple from Northampton, Massachusetts, introducing the president. That was really special. For me personally, I think about a few things. I think about how much has happened since 2009 when I filed that case, a case that many said could not be won. And at the time we sued actually the Obama-Biden administration to overturn the Defense of Marriage Act, which was just so unfair to our married same-sex couples here in the state and in other places where marriage was recognized. And as I say, I remember when we filed that, a lot of people, we took some grief from people, including constitutional scholars who thought it was a little foolhardy to file that kind of case and wondered what it would do to jurisprudence and the like. I also remember, partway through, we'd won in the lower court. We won the case in the lower court here, Federal District Court, and it was up on appeal. And I remember then Vice President Biden went on some talk show.
Meet the press.
And he made a comment in support of marriage equality. And I think it had the effect of accelerating President Obama's decision to basically change and to have at that time we were suing. We were up against the Department of Justice, and I remember getting a call from Tony West. He was then head of the Civil Division. A few days later, and he said we were going to withdraw and come instead of being against you in the appeal. The United States is going to come in on your side, and that really helped cement and change the trajectory of that appeal and then the case ultimately, which we prevailed in the Supreme Court. So I think about Joe Biden. That was my Joe Biden moment last week, was thinking about his comments and then what resulted. And it was great to see the signing. Of course, I got to be clear, this was the law. This was what Obergefell said. But it's nice, nevertheless, to have that backstop. It's also really important, Megan, that
people recognize this was a bipartisan piece of legislation. I would have liked more Republicans to sign, sure, but it was a bipartisan piece of legislation, and it shows, I think, and it should, I hope, provide some affirmation to folks out there in the LGBTQ community, too many families who felt a lot of fear the last few years and subject to a lot of attacks, that, you know what, no, we're going to be strong. We're certainly going to be strong here in Massachusetts, and I'll do everything in my power to make sure that we're looking out to protect the health and well-being of all people, but especially those, who have been unfairly targeted, denigrated, discriminated against for far too long.
Let's go back to the mic in the studio. Is it Nancy? Am I getting that right? Nancy, welcome. You're on with the governor-elect.
Hi, Governor.
Hey, Nancy.
Hey, I've been a fan forever because you really defend those of us who don't have a voice, don't have power, and you've always been like that. And every person I've spoken to in every neighborhood, and really, let's be real, Boston neighborhoods have an ethnic base that's all different. And every ethnic group in every neighborhood respects you. So thank you. Because you've defended us.
Well, thank you.
I wanted to say, how are you going to deal with the MBTA? I'm a former construction worker. As a former construction worker who worked around here in the 80s, I learned very early that if you want to lay down and make lots of money, go to the MBTA. And that comes from the top down. Good luck, Governor.
All right, thanks, Nancy.
That was a good one, Nancy.
All kidding aside, this is really, really important. And, I've said for a long time, we don't have a functioning economy unless we have a functioning transportation system. And for far too long, we have had a T that is not where it needs to be. We need a T and a transportation system. We're talking trains and rail and buses that are safe, affordable, and reliable. I've said two things when it comes to the T. And I am a person of action, and I'm not afraid to take on tough challenges, and neither is the Lieutenant Governor-elect Kim Driscoll. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to, and we've engaged a search firm. We've looked at some candidates. We're doing a worldwide search to make sure that we are bringing to town the best possible candidate to be the next general manager. That person is going to have transit experience, they're going to have operations experience, and they're going to understand that right now we've got a real workforce challenge when it comes to the T. The T needs workers. And so we're going to make sure that we have the right GM in place. We're also going to appoint a transportation safety chief. We've never had this before. That person is going to be responsible for making sure that everything is inspected. 3, we're going to make sure that we are taking a hard look and taking the necessary steps to address what the FTA has pointed out in terms of deficiencies. So these are some of the things right out of the gate that we're going to do. I am really committed to this. It is absolutely important. And again, ties to my climate policy. How are we going to incent people to get out of their cars, to come into our city, unless and until we have a transit system that's safe, that's reliable, that's affordable? That's an incredibly important priority.
Is that going to incent you to take the subway from Porter Square?
Oh, now and again. I think it's important that we do have, and that I have, personal experience with the experiences that other residents around the Commonwealth are having. So it certainly won't be every day. And as you know, Jim, as governor, my job, I'm going to be all over the state, right? But I do think it's important that we be in touch with the lived experience of residents around the state, including how it is they come and go to work or the like.
Governor Healey, the Supreme Court on Monday said that the legislature, lawmakers have to get involved because as it stands now, a gentleman who is suffering from stage 4 prostate cancer has took a case to the court, hoping to have physician-assisted suicide legalized. The court said it remains a crime under the state's Declaration of Rights, and there needs to be intervention by lawmakers. There was a ballot question that failed a few years back on this, but it was initially very popular, then it changed by the time the vote came around. But where are you on physician-assisted suicide?
Well, I thought the court made the right decision here. I think it's a really challenging and heart-rending issue, obviously, for so many. What I have said and what I think should happen is that the legislature should do the work, have the hearings, and figure out the best guide rails to put in place when it comes to this. So I support it as a general matter, And I think the key is just making sure that we have the right guardrails and processes in place for when the time comes that loved ones need to make that decision.
Okay, we only have a minute left. So this is pretty decent half hour, right?
That's great.
Okay, how would you feel about doing it an hour every month starting in January? It's called Ask the Governor, which will be then. Yes? How about it?
How about it? How could I not want to come back here? Of course.
That's right.
I'd love to.
Excellent. At the library, yes?
I love to. You know, I love doing it at the library when we can.
Great.
So I would love to do that.
Wonderful. And we'd like to announce someone you supported, who happens to be the Attorney General-elect, has also agreed to do a monthly thing at the library with us as well. So
I think that's great. You're
going
to love hearing from Andrea Campbell each month. I look forward to that.
Great. Governor-elect, we really appreciate your time. We know it's a tight day for you. We really appreciate your being here, and lots of luck.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Happy holidays, everyone. I wish you all the best and look forward to seeing you in the new year.
Great. Governor-elect Maura Healey.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Feel better, Marjorie.
Thank you very much, Governor-elect. We really appreciate it, and we're thrilled that you'll be joining us for Ask the Governor once a month at the library. That's great. We've been speaking with Governor-elect Maura Healey. Coming up, GBH Executive Arts Editor Jared Bowen joins us to discuss the latest in arts, movies, culture news in and around town, especially, particularly a move by the Pope to send back some stolen, purloined, or maybe just taken artifacts from the Parthenon. Jared Bowen is up next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
This is Oedipus, and we have a special Christmas Eve plan this year on GBH. A 10-hour Christmas block with Celtic, jazz, and my songs of peace, love, and understanding. Celtic at 3. I'm Brandon Donovan. Jazz at 6. I'm Al Davis. And my unique collection of songs from every genre heard nowhere else at 8 until 1 a.m. Christmas morning. I'll be live in the studio with you to welcome Christmas, only on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you and Standish Village in Dorchester's Lower Mills, providing assisted living residents with programs designed to help seniors stay sharp, social, and independent. Learn more at standishvillage.com/programs. And Vantage Healthcare, providing primary care physicians throughout New England. Vantage brings their primary care team on site to assisted living communities, nursing homes, and more. Learn more at myvantagehcs.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I am Jim Browdy, and Marjorie Egan is over there on Zoom. Is that correct? Yes, she is.
I am here.
We're joined now at the Boston Public Library by GBH Executive Arts Editor Jared Bowen, host of Open Studio. Hello, Jared Bowen.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Jared Bowen. Well, let's start with something we've been talking to you a lot about, which is artwork, artifacts that were taken from countries by conquerors in many cases being returned. Now Pope Francis wants to return some marble fragments taken from the Parthenon back to Greece.
Yeah, this is very significant. We've been talking about this, I think, every time I've been on in the last few weeks, because this is it's escalating in terms of how people are paying attention to this, how museums have in their collections things that were looted, or there's very questionable, as they say, provenance, the history of these artifacts. And so the church just stepped forward, and Pope Francis has said that they will return 3 Parthenon marble fragments that have been in the Vatican museums for 200 years to an archbishop in Greece. And this is very significant because the heat is really on the British Museum, which we've talked about has the Elgin marbles, which were on the Parthenon friezes. And the British Museum has long held that they were entitled to them, that they got them legally at the time, centuries ago, and so there's no reason to return them. However, we're also learning that there have been conversations between the government of Greece and the head of the board of trustees of the British Museum that there may be a time in the near future where these are returned.
By the way, isn't the British Museum the one in the middle of the Rosetta Stone thing, too?
It is, yeah.
So, I mean, they're obviously on the wrong side of history. I mean...
Well, if you look at what's in their collection, these are two all-star pieces in their collection. They know that people are going to visit them, so it's going to be an evolution for them to come to terms with the fact that maybe they have to be returned.
But that is, I mean, the primary argument, if you read between the lines, which I attempt, that it seems to be the argument, is we can't give these up even though the rest of the world is doing this because they're the centerpieces of our collections. Is that?
And essentially, and what because some of their other arguments have fallen away, that we're the best repository, we can take the best care, the most people are going to see them because London and the British Museum is most visited, but again, those are falling away because there are fantastic, phenomenal facilities in Greece.
How do you feel about following the governor-elect? Good, right?
Yeah. It's a
really good position
task.
to be in. It's really a good position to be in.
So let's talk about a new movie, which I'm kind of excited about. Brad Pitt's in it, and Margot Robbie. Didn't she play Tanya Harding in the great?
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I remember. I thought she did a great job playing Tanya Harding, the ice skater who had the unfortunate attack on Nancy Kerrigan back in the Olympics. Anyway, let's play a little sound from this trailer for this movie, Babylon, which follows Margot Robbie and Brad Pitt as their characters fight for relevance during the decadent and indulgent era of Hollywood filmmaking.
Good read.
In the 1920s.
She has no idea what's next.
There's a new sensibility now. People care about morals.
I've never done nothing except disappoint people my whole life. But I made it on my terms, not theirs.
Well, that added absolutely nothing to the discussion. So, what is the deal with it? I'm excited about this too, from what I read. What's it? Oh, it's good.
So I had the strangest thing happen to me when I saw this film. It's 3 hours long, and I left, and I thought, I don't know what to feel about this. I think I didn't like it, and the more I thought about it in the intervening days, and I thought about it a lot, I realized this is a fantastic film. So it's Damien Chazelle, who directed La La Land, clearly has an affinity for Hollywood and the movies, and he's described this as a hate letter to Hollywood, but a love letter to movies. So it takes us to the 1920s, and the first half hour is absolutely riveting. You have a character who's literally pushing an elephant up a hill because there's going to be this huge party at this San Simeon kind of estate presided over by a Hollywood producer.
That was the Hearst estate for those.
Yes. Exactly, yeah. And so we get launched into this party, and everyone's there, and it's total debauchery, mountains of cocaine, floods of champagne, lots of nudity and sex. And so it's this introduction to what Hollywood was like when the movies really started to grow up in the 1920s. And then it moves through, but it's telling this story, again, this passion for movie making in this place where dreams can come true. And Margot Robbie plays this young woman from New Jersey who, we're still in the silent film era, wants to become a star, and she does. And Brad Pitt is sort of the Clark Gable-esque character, a matinee idol. And we see these actors try to transition from the silent films into the talkies. So it's a bit of a remake of Singing in the Rain, but it also really looks at how depraved Hollywood is and how it eats people up and churns them up and spits them out.
Speaking of depraved, we should, no, really, no, it wasn't not what you think. I used to be a big fan of Woody Allen. He was my favorite filmmaker until we don't talk about him anymore, except now.
We talk about him all the time.
My attitude, that's true, and I always say we don't talk about him, then we talk about him. But my attitude was that what Woody Allen brought to the movies was if you can't say it in 90 minutes, don't say it. And most of his films are like an hour 20, hour 32, whatever, that sort of thing. Does this need to be, I hear it's great, but does this need to be 3 hours and 2 minutes?
There's still one scene that I absolutely despise in the film, and I talked to a friend about it. We had a lengthy conversation about it, and neither of us can figure out why that scene needed to be there. And I won't say anything more than if you go see the film, Tobey Maguire is in this scene. Other than that, it completely holds.
It really does?
And it really does, because it is looking at this whole machine that is Hollywood, and how we speaking of, you can hold two things to be true. One, that you hate Woody Allen, but you might really love his films. Hollywood is the same way. We know what it does to people. We know how it treats people, but also we just love, again, the magic.
Well, that's a good point. A lot of great Harvey Weinstein films that through the years, needless to say,
and who didn't love La La Land? Did you like La La Land? I love La La Land.
Didn't it win the Academy? Did it win the Academy Award?
I think it did.
No, remember that was the whole thing with.
Oh, they got it backwards.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's right.
Warren Beatty read the wrong thing or something like. Somebody read the wrong thing.
Yeah, whoops. That was a major whoops.
Who? Do you remember which one instead? I don't remember.
It was Moonlight. Yeah.
Thank you, Aiden.
Oh,
Aiden rescued us all
Moonlight,
from great
that was
embarrassment.
a
you knew it
great
too?
movie.
Excuse me.
But I
Okay.
did like La La Land. Very kind of soft.
Yeah.
Can we talk about, let's talk about The Whale. Let's play a little sound to begin with. This is like maybe the most talked about movie of the year. I mean, it's right up there. Here's a bit of sound from the trailer for, how do you pronounce this guy's name? Darren Aronofsky, is that who he is? The Whale, starring Brendan Fraser, everybody knows that, as a reclusive English teacher, Charlie, and Sadie Sink as his estranged teenage daughter, Ellie. Here it is.
You don't stay in touch with Mom?
She really only tells me things about you.
Why?
Because that's all I want to know about.
Why'd you gain all that weight?
Someone close to me passed away, and it had an effect on me.
You know, it's painful even listening to 13 seconds. So tell what the film is about, and then explain the huge controversy around the film.
Yeah, so this stars Brendan Fraser as a college professor who's teaching online at this point. Anonymously, he covers his camera because he's 600 pounds and he's locked into his apartment, essentially, and it's very physically difficult for him to get around. But he loves literature and he loves language, and he keeps returning to this one essay about Moby Dick that's really sustaining him, a student essay, which he had come across, and it figures quite prominently into the plot. And so he realizes that he's at the end of his life because his health is failing. And this is based on a play. In fact, the playwright Samuel Hunter wrote the screenplay as well. And so you have him, just as you might find on stage, he's situated in this apartment with visitors. He has his best friend Liz, who's played by Hong Chow, who she should get an Oscar nomination for this role. Also, his daughter and his ex-wife are visitors, as well as a Christian missionary. I didn't think this film worked at all. There's a lot of conversation about Brendan Fraser and his performance. I think it's fine, but it was completely melodramatic, this film.
We're talking Academy Award big time. That's what everybody writes.
Well, I always say this, you have to remember that the Academy Awards aren't necessarily about the best. It's also, is this your moment? You know, is this the time that politically you should get the award? Here's somebody who's been in Hollywood, Brendan Fraser, for a really long time. He's a nice guy. Everybody really likes him. And so he's done this very dramatic turn. It's not a bad turn. I'm not sure it's the best of anything I've seen.
Why did he fall out of favor as an actor for a decade?
I don't think he did, but there are ebbs and flows. You know, he had a lot of popularity, and then people move on to the next thing. It was certainly nothing he ever did. I mean, it is a fine performance, but now the controversy comes into play because of the issue around weight and how that's portrayed. And here's a character who suffers significantly, and people are saying, well, what are you suggesting by saying that because he is overweight, he's suffering so terribly? And so there is a lot of back and forth about the portrayal of this character and how it's done.
As a guy with 0% body fat, that would be you, not me, obviously. What was your take on that issue?
I thought, getting into his head, I thought that was rendered really well. That here you have a man who can't get outside of his own apartment and really facing down the end of his days and seeing this young daughter and trying to pull this relationship back together. That was resonant.
Actually, the sun is setting in your apartment. Are you aware of that? Even though it's only 12:47, you're getting darker and darker. I think, sort of.
Oh,
That's
my
okay.
goodness.
It's
Should I turn a light on?
No, maybe. Let's see how that goes.
How's that? Is that better?
We see all the holiday lights right in front of you, Marty.
I know. She loves that.
It's adorable.
Okay, I got us off track. We're talking to Jared Bowen, obviously executive arts editor here at GBH, Marjorie.
So tell us about Chicken and Biscuits.
Oh, this is the funniest play I have seen in a long time.
Oh, good.
Oh, it is absolutely hilarious. This is presented by the Front Porch Arts Collective, and it's playing at the Modern Theater right now. It is absolutely hilarious. Everybody should go. It's playing until January 8th. And here we find a family. I should mention that this is the first time the Front Porch Arts Collective, which is the area's first theater for black and brown people, has gone out on their own. Typically, they've partnered with other institutions. Here, they've gone out on their own. And we find a family assembling for the funeral of the patriarch. So you have two sisters, and one is very straight-laced. She's a tenured professor. Everything is proper. She has her husband, who is the minister, and then her other sister, not so successful in life, has decided to dress very provocatively for the funeral because she figures church is the best place that she's going to find a man. So there's this discord there. And then their kids have come in at varying levels. One is bringing his boyfriend, his white boyfriend, which isn't going over so well with some of the family. Another sister has just lost her fiance. They've broken up. So there's a lot of discord that comes into play. So the first act is kind of the preamble to all of this, with the baggage they're bringing when a family gets together. And the second act is at the the funeral. It's absolutely hysteric. And this is one moment where you feel the audience. I love this when I had these 4 women who were sitting in front of me and the laughter and the observations they were just having. And I felt it rolled off the stage over these women. And to me, it was just a great day at the theater.
By the way, did you say, I had to change my headphones, so I may have missed this. We had him on the show, Maurice Parent, when he was in
great.
Mr. Parent, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that play, it was spectacular. And he is, and by the way, I was just reminded, Jared and Sue are sitting, that would be you, Jared, by the way.
Oh.
And Sue O'Connell is sitting in for us on Friday, even though Marjorie thinks she's working, but she's not. And Maurice Parent and co-founder of Front Porch, and is it Tomika Bridwell, is that how I pronounce it? Who plays the younger sister Beverly, will be joining you. And Sue, what are you laughing at?
I am looking forward, because I'm just thinking about her in the role, and there's so much to talk about.
I want to say it, but he is spectacular. He is wildly talented guy.
On the stage and off, Front Porch, along with Donnie Simmons, this is their passion to create this theater and make this happen in the city, and they've done it.
So one of the things on your list to talk about today was this new Academy of Motion Pictures or whatever.
Yeah.
So when you go on a vacation like you did to Los Angeles, do you go to these things so you can get a tax deduction, or why do you? I'm serious.
I think this would be great.
Because
he didn't answer the question yet.
Okay.
I love what I do, so I wanted to see. I always
You're turning
go to
red, so the answer is yes,
because
right?
you're putting me on the spot. I hate when it's about me.
Okay, fine. Okay, so what is the deal? What's the name of this museum? What's the deal?
The name is terrible. I can't keep it straight. It's the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures. So the Academy that presents the Oscars every year. This has been a museum years and years in the making. It finally just opened last year, $480 million. But it's been very, very successful, and it tells the history of film. And it's over 7 floors, and my friend and I, we started on the top floor. We crossed the Barbara Streisand Bridge. She bought the naming rights to the bridge.
No, is that true?
You know, it's really funny. So, and then you go outside, and you can look at this great expansive view of the Hollywood Hills. But then we were walking back through it. They have Barbara Streisand playing in the Barbara Streisand Bridge. And then you work your way down, and currently on one of the top floors, you'll find a look at black cinema throughout the years. Something I really want to dig into is there were a few places around the country that were doing black productions, film productions in the early 1900s. Massachusetts and Cambridge, Boston and Cambridge, they were 2 of those places. But you'll find everything from Sidney Poitier's Oscar to the costume Meryl Streep wore in Mamma Mia, and Katharine Hepburn in The Sea of Grass before that. They currently have an exhibition about The Godfather, so you see the desk and the horse's head. You see, it was really...
Wait a minute. You see the horse's head? What do you mean?
Yeah, well, the prop, yeah.
Oh, don't even tell me this, Marjorie.
Yeah.
What are you going to think? You would have thought it was a real horse's head in the
I
damn
wasn't
bed?
sure what exactly it was.
Fortunately.
That's great.
Fortunately,
Do they have Jaws in there?
All she cares, it wasn't Secretariat. That's all you care about.
Secretariat. No, it was not.
We're good.
He is moving like a tremendous machine.
He was, but he's not anymore. That is correct. That was very quick. Thank you very much.
Very quick.
You mentioned Jaws. They did have a replica of Bruce from Jaws. And then the thing I was so excited.
Bruce is the shark.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They had a whole area of costumes and figures, and I was so excited when I turned this corner and saw R2-D2.
Oh, that is pretty great.
Oh my
The little
gosh.
4-year-old Jared was so excited. I put it on Instagram this morning because I loved it so much. It just made me so happy to see R2-D2. He's just one case away.
See the picture of Donald Trump as R2-D2? One of the NFTs is beautiful.
It's
really moving. With sunglasses.
In this piece we read about the Film Academy's, the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures, it said that they were surprised at its success, particularly among people under 40.
Yeah, what does that mean?
I was surprised that they were surprised.
Well, I think there was some concern. First of all, people were just tired of it because it was being built for so long in Los Angeles. They didn't know if people would actually come at the end of the day. But I think they were also wondering if, because movies have changed so significantly over the last couple of years, when's the last time most people have gone to the movies? You wait for everything to come to your home now and stream. So the connection isn't there. And actually, Jim, to go back to your first question, this is why I loved it, because I was a kid who was raised on movies. So to be in Los Angeles, and by the way, I was there just a couple of days after seeing Babylon, and so you just kind of feel the magic from Babylon, and then being there, and then you see this movie of this museum of all the history. It's great.
Okay, so what are you doing Friday night on your show there?
We're looking at writers because it's the holidays, we're revisiting some of our favorite conversations with writers, including Gish Jen and Tracy K. Smith, the poet.
Ooh.
I know.
Oh, that is really good. I don't mean that as opposed to the normal show, but that's really a good lineup. You have anything else you want to say, or are you done?
No, because I want some pizza, and I see Tiffany's over there with pizza.
Have you tried the pizza from Tenderoni's yet?
I was among her first customers. I think.
Excuse me.
Right?
Thank you very
that
much.
Day I was.
I can't believe I'm going to miss the pizza.
Well, that's what happens when you don't show up at work, Marjorie. You know what I mean? You missed the pizza. That's
good to
the
see you,
deal.
Marjorie.
So
maybe you
judge
can drive
accordingly.
some over.
No,
to
I
my
think
house
maybe I'm
after
not
the
going to drive
show.
some over, actually. But thank you for offering. Jared, it's a pleasure to see you. We're not going to see you. You're sitting in for us later this week. Yep. Happy holiday, Merry Christmas, all those kind of things.
Same to you.
Thank you so
Jared
much.
Bowen,
Jared
thank
Bowen.
you very, very much. We've been speaking with GBH Executive Arts Senator Jared Bowen, and we much appreciate his time and his advice on the hot plays to see in New York City this Christmas. Coming up, Tiffany Faison has a new restaurant in the Fenway that just opened last month, Tenderoni's. Oh, she's there with a bunch of pizza, which I will not be eating, but Jim will. She's joining us at the library next with some samples, even though, as I said, I will not get to
my God,
eat
Marjorie.
them. You're listening to Boston Public Radio.
Thousands of Afghans were brought to the U.S. after the Taliban took over in 2021, but the vast majority still don't have legal status here. A new bill before Congress could determine their fate.
If the Afghan Adjustment Act does not pass, by no fault of their own, despite that they have followed all the rules, they will suddenly be here illegally.
That story this afternoon on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you and MSI United States. Their providers are committed to bringing contraception, reproductive health care, and all the opportunity that comes with choice to women in the most remote parts of the world. More at msiunitedstates.org. And the Corcoran and Haviland Insurance Group, an independent insurance agency providing risk management and insurance protection to families and businesses throughout Massachusetts. Learn more at chinsurance.com.
Trusted. Local. News. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. Joining us now to describe all the food that Marjorie will not be eating at the Boston Public Library is James Beard Award-nominated chef, restaurateur, TV star Tiffany Faison. Her new restaurant, Tenderoni's, just opened in Fenway last month. You might also know her from her other fabulous places, Sweet Cheeks, Bubble Bath, Dive Bar, Fool's Errand, and Tenderoni's down in what's it called again?
High Street Place.
High Street Place, thank you. Or from shows like Top Chef, Chopped, and this ridiculous show, Beachside Brawl is ridiculous, and more. Tiffany Faison, it is great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. Marjorie.
Hello. Well, thank you.
I'm so sorry to miss you.
Yeah, he said I couldn't come today wearing a mask because he wanted to have more pizza to eat for himself.
Well,
so there you go.
I kind of can't blame him.
I got bad news for you.
can't.
Before you ask Tiffany a question, she didn't just bring pizza. In a few minutes, she will describe
all
what she
the
brought.
pasta and Italian dishes. Yeah, okay. So before we get any further, but luckily I live right near the Fenway, and I've been to every one of your restaurants, and I can come down there and get a lot of takeout over Christmas vacation, which I'm very excited about.
Good.
So tell us, though, about Tenderoni's. It's a hoppin' place.
Yeah, it's
besides
really
the
fun.
food.
It's fun. So unfortunately, we closed Orfano in the summer of last year. I wanted to take a lot of the things that we loved about Orfano and make it really fun and approachable and sort of introduce this kind of new style pizza. It's close to Detroit, but we've kind of melded Detroit and what I love about Pizza Hut, and obviously like incredible ingredients and everything handmade, into this kind of newer version of pizza that's become entirely our own. So yeah, the space is really fun. It's kind of got this it's super irreverent, lots of color, lots of It is. There are roller skates in it. It looks like an 80s 90s prom.
But you don't need to roller skate. You told me.
Yeah, please,
You
no
do
roller
not?
skating. I actually tried when we were turning it over, and it didn't go well.
You know, so could you explain why these pizzas? By the way, this is some mushroom deal. It is. What is this?
That's the mushroom marsala pizza.
Oh my God.
So marsala sauce on it, burnt parm crust, shiitakes, and creminis in it.
Marjorie, you wouldn't have liked it that much. It's okay.
No.
So,
I'm sitting here drinking my coffee.
what are the
You know, it's
dimensions
great.
of these pizzas you serve?
We have a couple of different sizes. So this is at the normal or the large, which is 2.5 feet long.
And what's the? I love that. I don't even know why I love it. But what's the thinking behind these odd shapes? Is it to get extra crust?
It's to get extra crust all the way around. So if you'll notice, like the edges are completely ensconced with like burnt Parmesan cheese all the way around and a little bit of fontina, which is my favorite thing. I love that, like frico, that sort of burnt, Parmesan cheese that everyone's eating it on it. You get it on salads, you get it on everything. So I thought if we could create that all the way around the crust, and then it's impossible to not have a piece with that crust on it.
Marjorie, can you handle it if Tiffany just went around all the things she brought and just described some?
No, it's
Can you deal with
fine.
that?
It's fine. As I said, I have the menu. I will
That's good.
make up
Menu's
for
plenty.
my
Sure.
tragic
Now, could you leave that thing
situation.
for last? Because you brought this to Greater Boston last week. I don't even like sweets. It may be the best thing I've ever eaten in my life. So do that laugh. Tell us what the other stuff is.
Sure, the mushroom masala pizza we already went through. So
Yeah.
this is one of our kind of new style classics that we're finding people really
Good for
enjoying.
you too, by the way. I think
Really
It's
good
very
for
healthy.
you. Yeah,
Go ahead.
it's the holidays.
I
Can you-
understand
can you
that.
not?
Go ahead.
Exactly.
Sophia chopped salad. So this is a beautiful casserole Toronto, a little bit of red leaf lettuce and green leaf lettuce, sliced pears in there, and it's got a crumble of fennel and pistachio on top of it with a creamy Italian dressing. These are our meatballs. Dan Rea, my culinary director, makes the best meatballs I've ever had in my life. We continue to make those with Sunday gravy.
Could you hand those over here
Sure
while you're
can.
talking? Thank you.
Fontina fonduta on top of that with
Okay.
a little bit more frico and breadcrumbs. We brought biscuits from Sweet Cheeks because
Fork,
I know
please.
that.
Can I have a fork,
Yeah,
please?
Oh
of
my
course.
God.
Sorry,
Thank you.
inhospitable.
I have eaten
Thank you. I
hundreds
appreciate
of the biscuits from Sweet Cheeks.
I have found that when I walk in the door anywhere and don't bring biscuits, that there's
Yes, I mean, they are
I'm
just
chased
the
by
best.
the cops.
Okay,
so.
keep going.
And the honey butter.
Yes, there's honey butters here, Marjorie. It's
Yeah.
missing you.
I know.
Pistachio cake. So this is a very bright green cake. It's got all the flavors of like that really classic pistachio. We wanted it to be. These are really good examples of the food at Tenderoni's, which is super delicious. Obviously handcrafted, chef sensibilities, but a lot of fun as well. So we really I talked a lot about what we wanted when we built this restaurant, and it's tough for restaurants to have fun right now. It's been a really kind of long road for us to come back, and so I wanted to make sure that all the food was delicious and really all the things that we want to bring to food anyway, but unbelievably, unabashedly fun.
By the way, everything's even Orfano's, which was upscale, big time, was a huge fun.
Always fun.
It was huge fun.
Always fun.
What's that like? Before you ask a question, Marjorie, this thing that you brought the other night, what is that?
They're tiramisu nachos.
Oh my God.
So we've made I took the idea of tiramisu and made nachos out of them.
Tiramisu nachos.
No, you cannot imagine.
Oh
Marjorie.
my God.
Yeah, so crispy chips. We've got a little bit of caramel, some hot fudge or our own fudge that's stripped over it, a little bit of hazelnut cream. There's crunchies around it. There's a little bit of they're ridiculous.
Okay, well, thank you for passing. By the way, the meatballs. What's the guy's name again?
Dan Rea.
Yikes!
Unbelievable, right?
Spectacular.
So good.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
So
Marjorie.
you were
I'm
talking
sorry.
about how you want to have fun, and restaurants have gone through a really difficult time, obviously. But the stuff that's been written about your Tenderoni's talks about it's got like a retro feel to it, kind of a Pizza Hut vibe thing, and it's huge.
I don't know if it's a Pizza Hut vibe, but yeah.
Well, Cara Baskin calls it a Pizza Hut vibe. Maybe she's wrong, but in any case, I mean, it's huge. 2 big bars and 140 seats, so you can be in a big space.
100%. So it is two separate bars. It's a giant space. It's the old Tiger space. So I didn't do anything structurally. I just changed it cosmetically. So and then we obviously completely overhauled the kitchen to be able to do this. So yeah, it's a space where you can have a bunch of different experiences within the space, which is something that I really value in the restaurants that I build. That you can come in multiple times and have different experiences based on where you are physically, based on the food that you order. That's why we like to have menus that are a little bit bigger. So it allows, or if you're in a larger group and you come in, everyone can have an experience that's kind of tailored to what they need as well.
We're talking to Tiffany Faison. Her latest is Tenderoni's. And we talked about this the other night. Orfano's closed in part because of COVID. Yet, while you're losing a fabulous restaurant, simultaneously, which I really don't get, you're opening restaurants. You're not only open, how many places do you have at High?
3 at High Street
3 there, and then Tenderoni's, hopefully at the tail end of the pandemic. So what's the business thinking as to why this round of things is going to succeed when Orfano's is a casualty of COVID?
Well, it's interesting. I think a lot of things shifted. Our behaviors shifted. I think neighborhoods, Fenway has always been, not always, it's been an artist neighborhood, and then it kind of moved into a neighborhood that was becoming less emergent and more of a staple in the city. I think COVID changed that a little bit for us. We saw the Fenway really change. And so it's coming back a little bit. I'm not sure the Fenway is ready for a higher-end restaurant yet. So I think that was really a struggle for us with Orfano. We saw a lot of people that were living in the Fenway left. They went to their second homes. They sort of left.
But doesn't that make you nervous? Even if that's
Everything
the
makes me nervous.
Well, okay, me too. So
But
that's
you know
perfect.
something? They have a skating rink down there now,
They do.
right?
Yeah, we have a nice skating rink.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
The other night I was by there, and there must have been, there were tons and tons of people on that skating rink right in the middle of the city in front of the old Sears building.
Yeah,
there,
it's
and
fabulous. It's
yeah,
fabulous.
it's great, and the place was packed.
Yeah, I think the neighborhood has tipped a little bit younger again. So I think it started young. I think it's tipping younger again. Not to say that it's not diverse in ways that are, there are people that are, my age and older that come to the neighborhood, but I do think that it is a neighborhood that speaks to a younger crowd. So
I'm slightly older. I come to the neighborhood, Tiffany. I don't know if you're. I am just slight. So
I'm not saying it.
Plus, it's got the world's biggest Target right there as well.
It does.
Earlier this month, you took part in this 4-hour-long 50-state dive into holiday cookies for the people at the Today Show. Here's a clip of you representing Massachusetts, because that's the state you live in, with your signature Fluffernutter cookies. Here it is.
It smells incredible in here. It smells like peanut buttery, nutty, buttery goodness. These are gorgeous. The biggest problem with these is their disappearing act that they pull. They're crispy on the outside, chewy and fluffy on the inside. Look at that, so good. It's like the fluff equivalent of a cheese pull in a cookie. You guys have to make these cookies. They really are straight from the heart of Massachusetts. One of my favorite holiday treats.
Why are they one of your favorite holiday treats? Treats, exactly. Marriage is what brings us together. Go ahead, thank you.
I think they're so representative. It was about the 50 different states, and I wanted to represent a cookie that was from Massachusetts. It really had the heart of who we are in it. Fluff is obviously invented in Somerville. It was really, I think, a hallmark of what we love about living here. So a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of cheekiness, a lot of history, and just peanut butter and fluff. It's ridiculous.
We're talking to Tiffany Faison.
Listen to this. Richard from Somerville just texted and said, I had the pleasure once of sitting next to Miss Tiffany Faison on a plane trip. She is charming and entirely unfull of herself. How do you like that?
That's so nice.
Wow. Richard is going to later write in about his experience sitting next to Jim on the airplane.
Oh, that's funny, Marjorie.
Well, thank you, Richard. I'm glad
That
that
is
you were
really a
good plane seat.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
Why do you do as much as you do? When I'm watching, what was the thing you just won? The Guy Fieri deal?
Tournament of Champions.
That was actually great. That, I have to say, I loved that
Thank
kind of
you.
thing. Beachside Brawl is going to take me some time to get into.
Don't worry, you won't see it again.
Well, that's good to hear. Sorry. Why do you do? I mean, you're a restaurateur, and you have a ton of restaurants, and you're coming out of a nightmare for both human beings and eaters at restaurants. Why do you do all this?
Well, I've been given the opportunity to do a lot of things. And so I think it's interesting. Yeah, I'm a chef and I'm a restaurateur, but I think to pigeonhole anyone into just one thing when I think a lot of us are creative in a bunch of different ways. And so I enjoy competition.
I'd say that's true if you've seen these.
Well, a lot of
I'd say
times.
so.
Sometimes I don't enjoy it that much. I also enjoy being able to interact with young chefs and being able to be a judge on Chopped. I get to see, what's in the minds of young chefs and what they're thinking and where they're progressing, and to be able to we have a lot of conversation with young chefs that aren't on camera about, their careers and what they're thinking around food, and I really love that interaction. And I'm not someone who sits still, so I think forward motion is really important.
Well, Tiffany, you said at the beginning that the Tenderoni's pizza has some influence from Detroit, and I'm always very fascinated by kind of the evolution of pizza because it is so different than when I was a kid, and so is it?
Wait a second. I've known you 25 years. Since when are you fascinated with the evolution of pizza?
Well,
we
I
have
love
talked about
pizza.
everything. You've never brought that up with me.
Well, I have not talked about the evolution of pizza with you, Jim, but I am very into
Have we
pizza.
just found the one conversation
that
you
we
guys
haven't
have
had.
not
Right, exactly.
in 5 years?
Really, who isn't into pizza, right? And it
We
just,
don't know
it
those
just
people.
seems like, does it come from different ethnic traditions, or is it from sections of the country, or is it, the Italians with their pizza? Where is pizza 2022, I guess is what
I mean,
I'm
the
asking.
answer to all of that, Marjorie, is yes. It comes from different ethnic influences for sure. Like there are different regions in Italy that have different types of pizza that have made their way into the United States, and then regionally in the United States we have different types of pizza, and then I think people add their spin to pizza. It's interesting. I don't think that pizza it's one of those things that I think has been able to kind of become a reflection of people that want to put whatever they want on pizza. There are certainly DOP pizzas that you go and it's Napoleon pizza, or this is this type of dough and this type of tomato sauce, and that sort of deep tradition is very interesting to me. As a chef, it doesn't particularly interest me to do the same thing over and over. I think it's a lot about what chefs want to bring to the game and what people want to eat on pizza.
I want to say, by the way, wait, I just want to say one thing because I feel I misrepresented. Last week, this is true, and so I don't want to make fun of Marjorie. I called her late at night. We had a discussion we were supposed to have. And remember what you told me?
I was interested in the evolution.
No,
of
you
pizza.
said I can't talk tonight because I'm thinking with some close friends, talking about the evolution of pizza.
Well, if you don't mind, I have a few more pizza questions.
I'm busy writing my dissertation on the
So
evolution
there are
of
certain places in Boston that have legendary pizzas.
Sure.
And I'm thinking of one on the North End.
You can say it.
Regina's.
Or Santarpio, there are a ton of them.
Santarpio's and Eastie.
But the satellites of Regina's, I think it's fair to say, don't quite do it.
That's why you didn't want to say it.
So why is that? Is it because the ovens are different, or because, what is it about pizza ovens and trying to recreate them elsewhere that doesn't seem to work?
You really have been thinking about the evolution of pizza, haven't you?
I absolutely have.
No, you're right. When I go to Regina, I go to the Regina in the North End. I only order small pies. I want them cooked all the way through. I don't even order a large pie when I go to Regina in the North End. There's very specific things I want out of each place. So I hear you that it does kind of change. Yes, ovens matter. Dough matters. And it matters that there's a great deal of attention on every pizza that's made. And I know that sounds very chefy and very kind of snobby, but pizza is not a throwaway. It's not something that we go, oh, I'm just gonna make pizza and everything's gonna be fine. If you are not paying the same attention to pizza as we do biscuits, as we do salad, the same level of attention, whether it's a very high-end restaurant or whether it's something that eats a little bit more, the experience is a little bit more casual, the attention to detail matters.
Since Marjorie was so honest, I feel I have to come close. I've thought for years about the evolution of tiramisu nachos, and this is the culmination. You can't even describe what these are. They are insane. Hey, when you came in, you gave a hug to the governor-elect.
Yeah.
That was epic. For those who don't know, in addition to your multitude of TV things, and however many great restaurants you have, one of the things I love about you is you make time for things that really matter in the world. Not that those things don't. You're a big-time activist, particularly in LGBTQ stuff, and all vulnerable people. How much did that aspect of Healey's ascension matter to you,
Huge.
Tiffany Faison?
Huge. Huge. To be the first out lesbian governor in the United States. Unbelievable to watch her ascension in this state, and you want to talk about someone who doesn't sit still and who continues to grind and does it to make our lives better and to make people who are more vulnerable's lives more rich and more full, and to understand that we as a state, as a country, as a democracy, don't rise unless we all rise together. She's an inspiration.
One of the beautiful line in her speech on election night, which I'm sure you've seen, talking about for every little girl. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. She said it beautifully. Every little girl out there, every LGBTQ kid. She just said it beautifully. Do you buy that the trickle-down impact of having a person like Maura Healey in really high places is huge beyond her?
Of course. Yeah, it ascends beyond beyond just her, she is now a symbol. She's a human, and she's also a symbol of what's possible for people. I mean, it's become a little bit trite, this phrase, if you can't see it, you can't be it.
Yeah.
But for a very long time, we didn't have people in really high levels of government that reflected who we are. We still haven't had a female president. And it's interesting, like when we are having conversation about people of color and the need for representation at very high levels, we continue to need that. And I hear a lot of like chatter of why people are in whatever position or being represented, and it's like, oh, because they're a person of color and that's what people are looking for right now. Absolutely not. Like it's about time that everyone has been given a shot and being put in a platform and in a stage that people can see who we are as a diverse population in the country and be able to represent in that way. So yeah, it's really, really important. Obviously she just achieved the governorship, but onward and upward. I'm not someone who's ever going to be particularly satisfied in this country until we have a woman in the White House.
But you know something that I think is really interesting about Maura Healey's election? Sorry, I didn't mean to step on those applause.
No, it's okay.
That her being gay was almost like a non-issue here in Massachusetts. It wasn't talked about really. I mean, she mentioned it in her speech and stuff, but it wasn't. Then you have states like Florida, where you have Ron DeSantis and the Don't Say Gay bill, and teachers being afraid to talk about their partners, that they'll lose their jobs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you see a country that is really kind of all over the place. Even though we had a lot of Republicans support the cementing of of gay marriage just a few days ago in the Senate, at least in states, they have to recognize the marriages of states.
Still a minority of Republicans, we should say.
A minority of Republicans, and it's not just marriage for LGBTQ individuals. It's people for interracial marriage. You still have Mitch McConnell voting against it, who's married to a woman of Asian descent. Like it's so much of this, I believe, is gimmicky, and it's working, right? Like it's not something that we really saw pre-Trump. It was something that was kind of in our heads a non-issue. Even in the LGBTQ community, we knew that being, I hate to say given rights, but earning rights and being seen as equals and it being less of an issue, it was temporary. Like things go, they ebb and flow, they come in and out. And unless like there is legislation and codification of our rights, like it's always up for debate. I mean, even, I don't go this far, but even Roe, like that was settled. Now it's not.
We thought.
So before you go, I just want to say two things. I said this to you off the air the other night. The two things I appreciate most about you is your political activism. And of course, equally is when we had I think it was our Christmas party at Fool's Errand a few years ago, and you shut it down for us. Tiffany Faison made, I would say, 500 pigs in blankets by hand, which were the best I'd ever eaten. And to my dying day, I will be forever grateful, Tiffany Faison.
It was absolutely my pleasure. I should have brought you pigs in blankets.
You sure as hell should have.
Well, he can still eat the tiramisu nachos.
And the meatballs, and the salad, and the pizza. Tiffany, it's great to see you.
It's
Congratulations.
so nice to be
Good
here.
luck with the new restaurant.
Thank
Tiffany
you.
Faison.
Thank you so much,
Marjorie,
Tiffany,
good to
for
see you.
being
Thank
here.
you.
Have a great holiday.
Thanks for having me. You too.
We've been speaking with James Beard Award-nominated chef, restaurateur, TV star, and local star personality Tiffany Faison. Her new restaurant, Tenderoni's, just opened in the Fenway last month. I think you've been hearing about this absolutely wonderful food, but it's not just Tenderoni, Sweet Cheeks, Bubble Bath, Dive Bar, Fool's Errand, and you've seen Tiffany on Top Chef, Chop, Beachside Brawl, and a lot more. Anyway, coming up, Washington Post columnist and Fall River native E.J. Dion discusses the January 6th committee voting to refer former President Trump for criminal charges. We're going to get his take on that. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Make a big impact in supporting the news and conversations you trust by donating your car, truck, boat, or other used vehicle to GBH's Vehicle Donation Program. We'll take care of pickup, you'll get a possible tax advantage, and that contribution will go right toward the quality journalism and smart entertainment programs you hear every day here on GBH 89.7. Find out more about donating your old vehicle to GBH online at gbh.org/vehicle donation.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Mass General Cancer Center, dedicated to providing compassionate care and cancer specialists who are experienced in the cancer you have. When you hear the word cancer, their team is ready. Learn more at massgeneral.org/cancer. And Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. You can start the new year by joining their team of professionals dedicated to advancing ocean science and technology. Learn more about openings at whoi.edu/team.
Marjorie, that food is fabulous. You really would have loved it. Welcome back to Boston
much.
Public Radio. We're at the Boston Public Library. We're joined now on Zoom, I think on Zoom, by Washington Post columnist E.J. Dion. He's a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution. His latest book is 100% Democracy, The Case for Universal Voting. And of course, most importantly, at least on this show, he's a Fall River native. E.J., it's good to see you.
It's great to be with you always.
So, EJ, before we get to politics, I just have to pump my hometown here for a second because, people think of Fall River, they think of people from Fall River, they think of Lizzie Borden, who gave her mother 40 whacks and gave her father 41 or whatever it was. Well, we now have a movie, not a great movie, but it's a good enough movie about a hometown hero, first Medal of Honor winner from the Korean War, Thomas Hudner. It's called Devotion. Have you had a chance to see it yet? It's about the...
No, I haven't. My sister has been pushing me to see that.
Yeah.
I hope I see it over the holidays.
It's just a heartening, Korean War story, the so-called Forgotten War, about the Chosin Reservoir and about a great hero from our hometown, Thomas Hudner. So an opportunity to mention that.
Well, I just had a great hometown experience. I'm joining you from up in the Senate. I was visiting with Senator King today, but on the way here where I'm sitting, I ran into Senator Warren, and we talked about the $14 million that Fall River just got from the federal government for cleaner energy on buses and other things. And it just shows we never think about all these big bills actually cashing out into real money for real places. Great. But she was very happy to brag on a recent visit to our hometown.
So, EJ, we know, everybody knows what the recommendations, the referrals, criminal referrals against Trump, Eastman, and some other unnamed individuals were about yesterday coming out of the final public hearing of the January 6th committee. We also have learned that they have no legal consequence, but at least from where I sit or stand, it seems to me this puts even more pressure on Merrick Garland through Jack Smith, but Merrick Garland to bring some criminal proceedings against the former president. Do you buy that?
I do. I think that's where they are moving. I think the appointment of Jack Smith, who's tough and known to be efficient, like he likes to move things fast and make decisions, I think that's where they were going. But if when all this started, there was a predisposition toward hand-wringing and say, do you really want to indict a former president? And that's dangerous, then it's not a great thing to do for a new president administration to indict a former president. I think the 1-6 committee really shifted a lot of people's assumptions. They laid this out in a very compelling way. They're going to have a monster big report out tomorrow. I mean, the preface was or the executive summary was 154 pages. And it just says now, I think that the lean is toward, yes, you got to indict the guy. I also thought it was very significant that they didn't simply do the charges related to conspiracies to block a public proceeding and so on. They went all in on the insurrection charge. Yeah. But that's a much tougher charge to have stick with the jury. It's a very unusual charge. It goes back to the Civil War. But one of the penalties it carries is you're essentially forbidden from running for office again, from holding state or federal office. And I think they sent a big signal by including that in the 4 charges they sent up to proposed charges they sent up to justice.
Can I stay on that just for 1 second? And I apologize to audience members who are going to say, you say this every day, Jim, but I think it's important since EJ just touched on that. According to Larry Tribe and former federal judge Nancy Gertner, 2 pretty smart constitutional scholars on TV with me a few days ago, their contention is in fact the only criminal conviction that would bar anybody, including a former president, from holding federal office is an insurrection-related charge, a la the 14th Amendment, Section 3, as they talk about. If he's convicted around the Mar-a-Lago documents, if he's convicted around financial fraud, obviously that's serious, but at least according to them, he could run from office not only as a convicted felon, but as a jailed convicted felon, according to, I would argue, the premier constitutional law expert in the United States.
Right. Well, I would probably come from a state that has elected people from jail cells. So, yes, you can get convicted. I mean, I'm talking about my dear Massachusetts there. That's right. The insurrection statute and the 14th Amendment would bar him, we believe. It hasn't been tested in a long time.
Right.
But that is the one that carries that penalty. And I think that may be one reason why they suggested that charge.
I agree.
As we were watching, Liz Cheney was very clear in saying this guy should never, ever hold public office again. And that's, was a theme running right through all of these investigations.
So EJ, way back when this was starting back in June, you said that the members have to make clear that Donald Trump intentionally, this is your writing, intentionally and criminally orchestrated these events to hold on to power in defiance of the will of the American voters. By what you've been saying, you think they have done that.
I did. There was a big debate when this started, and those of us who write columns a lot sometimes get things wrong. I was grateful that from the start I had a good feeling about how they had organized this and where they were going. I always thought they had it in them to make this case, and they made it even better. I was pretty optimistic, and I think they made it even better than I might have expected when they started, but I did have the expectation that with the kind of work they put in, the number of interviews, the amount of material they gathered is really impressive. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see as they release this over the next couple of weeks. There are going to be piles of evidence that will be public largely, but will also go over to the Justice Department. It's I don't know how to read Mitch McConnell ever, but his reaction to this report was not enthusiastic, but it wasn't condemnatory. He said, and I quote Mitch McConnell, "The entire nation knows who is responsible for that day." And I think that is what the committee underscored with everything that they did.
By the way, we're trying, for those who are listening either here at the library or at home, we're trying to fix this sound problem. So be patient for a minute or two. We hope to get it fixed. I'm sorry, Marjorie.
Mitch McConnell did say that, and as you say, he didn't mention Trump's name, but he did say everybody knows who's responsible for it. But I do wonder, we get texts all the time from people saying, "Oh, this is, basically the what the Trump wing of the party is saying. This was a hatchet job. There were no Republicans. They have just been out to get him ever since the beginning. 2 impeachments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's no proof." Is it just impossible to get the people that are committed to Donald Trump to move, even when he seems to be doing these bizarre things down at Mar-a-Lago and setting out these weird NFT, whatever you call those things, NFTs of him dressed up as astronauts and sheriffs and military guys? I mean, do people just hang with him forever?
It's sad that Donald Trump became a serious figure in his own mind, because he is one of the funniest guys in, entertainment.
Beautifully put, AJ.
Wild. A, it shows how interested he is in making money, and B, I actually think it was yet another sign of how this guy is on the decline. And by the way, I apologize. I think I was the one making banging sounds because I'm holding my phone with my hands, so I'm going to be very careful.
You're doing great now, EJ. Continue.
Yeah. But, 35% of the country will never be persuaded. Maybe it's down to 25. I think there is a slow, steady deterioration in Trump's position. But you'll probably never go much below 20 or 25%. So that doesn't bother me. I think what you've seen is a real erosion in whatever standing he had in the middle of the electorate, the part of the middle that was open to him. And you're starting to see erosion in the Republican Party. A couple of polls recently showing him running behind DeSantis among all Republicans around the country. Now, DeSantis is not my idea of a good time or a good president. But the fact that Trump has fallen that low, I think shows that, this committee and everything else that's happened has had an effect on people. I also think, and let's not be too idealistic about this, a lot of Republicans are mad at him because he kicked away a lot of seats in November's election. He may have kicked away their chances to control the Senate. In the House, he helped hold down Republican gains. So Republicans who aren't turning on him for reasons of principle are turning on him because they don't want to lose anymore.
But one thing, they didn't lose the House, even though the margin was narrower than expected. And a guy who refused a subpoena, who really, to my knowledge, has never condemned the insurrection, is a Trump sycophant till his dying days, is about to be chair of the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, who has other issues from his past when he was at Ohio State. What's the consequence of someone like Jordan, who also voted not to certify, I believe, the election of Joe Biden? What's the significance, or am I overplaying this, of Jim Jordan as House Judiciary Committee Chair, E.J. Dion?
My point of view, it's a kind of scary thing. What in the heck will he do with that job besides every Republican wants to be part of some investigation of Hunter Biden? But yeah, it's a scary thing. And the fact is, the House Republican majority includes a whole lot of people from very funky right-wing districts who would not give up on him. The question is, what damage do Republicans do to themselves?
Hey, EJ, this is not your fault. We have to bid you adieu, not because we don't like the content of your message, but because we can't hear it.
You know what? I think, am I better now?
You are better now.
Yes.
I think I was holding the phone wrong. I think I was blocking myself.
Well, it's about time. What can I tell you? So you want to finish the Jordan thought you just made, if you don't mind?
That was all on me. I think that the Republicans, if they go too far on all this crazy stuff, are really going to turn people off. I think the one that the Bidens aren't looking forward to is the investigation of Afghanistan. That's one place where they might get a little damage in, revive one of the lower moments of Biden's presidency. But the rest of it, I think, is a recipe to really hurt the party among mainstream voters. I don't mean just liberals or Democrats. I mean real middle-of-the-road voters who want Washington to solve problems.
Yeah. How about the Hunter Biden investigation, which, of course, has been mentioned over and over again? I mean, he's got some problems, I think.
Oh, yeah. I think, it's not going to be pretty, but they don't seem to have anything that connects Joe Biden with Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden has been very open about having some real problems with drugs and other things. And I think that's a classic case where if they overdo it, and it looks like they can't contain themselves from overdoing it, they'll end up, stirring up some real sympathy for Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. I think smarter Republicans are saying, don't put all your eggs in that basket. But there are some Republicans who just can't go through the day without mentioning Hunter Biden about 5 times. And I think Americans are going to get sick of that investigation.
Before you go, I'm curious to know what your major takeaways are from a terrific piece in your paper by Rosalind Helderman, Josh Dawsey, Ashley Parker, Jacqueline Alamany. Marjorie pointed this out to me Sunday night in a text, how Trump jettisoned restraints at Mar-a-Lago and prompted legal peril. By the way, everybody should read this. It is as good a portrait of a solitary man who used to be the most powerful person in the world at Mar-a-Lago. What are your major takeaways from that, E.J. Dion?
Well, we're talking all about the 1-6 committee, as we should, which investigated, the biggest crime. But the one he is so obviously vulnerable on, and the one that I think he will get indicted on fairly quickly, is his taking those documents down to Mar-a-Lago. And I also think the portrait they presented and other portraits we're seeing, this really is an isolated person without a whole lot of people whom he really trusts to get advice that he so clearly needs. And I think in defeat, his standing, his image has declined because instead of seeing him as this big disruptor of American politics, people are seeing him as this sort of weak, aging, I hate to use that word since we all are, but aging guy who doesn't have any real handle on what he would do with power again if he ever got it.
You know, my takeaway before you go quickly is the reason he's isolated, and I may be reading too much into this, is only in part because he's pushing advisors away for whatever reason, and in part because advisors know being advisor to Donald Trump is a short ticket to an investigation and potentially jail. I mean, that he's like toxic even to his own sycophants to a great degree, is he not?
Oh, it's terrible. I 100% right. I mean, it's hilarious if you are inclined to laugh at all this, how many lawyers won't touch him because even as lawyers, they feel vulnerable that they're going to be put in a position of doing something bad. And the speed with which he throws people over the side, I always say in Massachusetts, we're guilty of a lot of things, but typically we value loyalty a lot in politics, sometimes to a fault. Trump has absolutely none of that, and that can be fatal in politics.
You know, by the way, keep checking your email or whatever you check to get an NFT, because Marjorie bought you the one in the astronaut suit for Christmas.
So that's right.
I think you'll love
arriving
Marjorie.
Any day now.
I knew you loved me. Thank you so very much.
Hey, have a great Christmas, EJ.
Happy
Appreciate
Christmas.
it.
Great
Thank
to see
you.
EJ, Dion. Thanks.
Great. Take care. Bye-bye.
We've been speaking with Washington Post columnist E.J. Dion. He's a senior fellow at the Brookings Institute, and his latest book is 100% Democracy, The Case for Universal Voting. Okay, coming up, we're going to open the lines at 877-301-8970 for sort of a Christmas holiday potpourri. Gift giving, Christmas decorating, fake trees versus real trees, or whether what I really want to talk about, based on this new investigation by the guy who made the movie Titanic, whether Jack could have fit on that floating door at the end of the Titanic next to Kate Winslet and not died in the North Atlantic.
What's the Christmas connection with that, if I may ask, Marjorie?
Well, there's no Christmas connection except that Cameron's, the director Cameron's investigation announcement has just come out, and we're going to talk all about the investigation. This is a serious investigation.
We are, yeah.
That's right. Whether Leonardo DiCaprio could have survived next to Kate Winslet if he'd gotten on the door and floated with her instead of going down the North Atlantic.
Beautiful.
That is next. 877. People have been debating this for 25 years.
25 years, yeah.
877-301-8970 is the number on Christmas. Or poor Leonardo DiCaprio. That's next on 89.7 GBH, Boston Public Radio.
There was a whole lot going on in our community in 2022.
50 migrants were flown unannounced by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to Martha's Vineyard.
And we're revisiting those stories.
The community has really been rallying to provide temporary housing.
We put together 50 beds, blew up air mattresses. We're going to respond and we're going to support these families and provide some humanity.
Thursday on GBH's Morning Edition.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer. The Unclaimed Property Division is holding unclaimed funds for the citizens and businesses of the Commonwealth. You can see if you have unclaimed money at findmassmoney.com. And Eversource. Eversource knows the role energy plays at the center of life for you and your family. And because of that understanding, in times like these, they offer plans that can help this winter. To see if you qualify, visit eversource.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Margery Egan. One of us is live at the Boston Public Library. We're going to try to do something I don't think we've done before. We're going to try to have two different shows on at the exact same time. Here's what I mean. We're only hosting 2 more days till we go on vacation for Christmas, and we're back in January. There'll be fill-in people, Jared and Sue. We're off next week. So with that in mind, we wanted to open the lines, at least I did, for a holiday potpourri. Ask us anything or bring up anything relating to Christmas. For example, you're still fuming over the Christmas tree saga in Dedham, trying to cut down on spending this year but feeling the consumerism pressure? Or what if you just don't have any good gift ideas? Does it make you a bad friend or family member if you just get everybody a $20 gift card to Dunkin' Donuts, or is that really what they want anyway? That's what I want to talk about. What Margery insists on talking about, which has nothing to do with Christmas, she's obsessed with this. We're all curious to hear your thoughts, at least Margery is, on whether you believe James Cameron, he's the director of the Titanic, as Margery said, 25th anniversary this week. Do you believe him when he says he's confirmed through science that Jack would have died on the raft even if Rose, Kate Winslet, had moved over? Those are our 2 questions at 877-301-8970. You may have 30 seconds to make your case on the raft, the door, or whatever it was on the Titanic. Take it away. Whatever it was. Go ahead.
For people who watch the movie The Titanic 110 times, such as myself, we always wondered at the end why, when the Titanic has gone down and Jack and Rose, or Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet are in the North Atlantic freezing to death, why Kate Winslet couldn't
just
have
move over
on the door so that Leonardo DiCaprio could have gotten on the door with her and survived and not frozen to death in the North Atlantic. And a lot of people have been debating this. I mean, Mythbusters attacked this. James Cameron has done this big study, this forensic study. It's going to be on National Geographic to explain what happened. James Cameron is kind of a nasty guy. He basically says that that's what the script says. Jack has to die, and he has to die, and that's the way it is. That's just he just had to go down right into the water, and we don't really care. But lots of fans are very concerned about this, and that is the issue that's being settled by this big study.
By nobody.
Well, no, James Cameron, the director of the Titanic, has done a big study because people have been upset about this for 25 years.
Why do you believe OJ's looking for the killer, too? Why do you believe that James Cameron did a big science? By the way, here's that fateful scene in which Jack, as Margery is saying, makes Rose promise to not let go of the door.
That's
Here it
right.
is. Here it is.
Promise me now, Rose. And never let go of that promise. I promise. Never let go.
I will never let go, Jack. I'll never let go.
And then we had to cut it short. Jack then says to her, "Will you move over or what?" 877-301-89. Listen, I'm going to humor Margery because it's almost Christmas. You want to talk about Titanic and why Jack wasn't in the door? Why didn't Rose move over?
You probably didn't even see the movie.
Of course I saw the movie, and I wept like everybody else wept.
So didn't you think that Kate could have moved
over or get off the damn door and let Jack get on the door? But I would like to discuss, by the way, there's a new term which I learned today on the topic that I'm really interested in. Do you know what shop your house means?
Yeah, go around your house and look for presents you can give to somebody else.
No, that is
old
incomplete.
Books and bottles of wine.
No, that is incomplete.
And mugs.
That is incomplete.
Okay.
You only have half of it. Go around your house, look for old books, whatever you just said, bottles of wine, etc., that mean something to you. And then, even though it's a used, not regifting, it's a used thing, you give it to someone because this thing in your house. What are you laughing about? This thing in your house mattered to you. Okay, read the text. This is really...
I don't know if...
We're probably going to get fired for this segment. Go ahead.
I don't know if Leonardo DiCaprio could have stayed afloat in that door, but I'm pretty sure if it was Jim, the door would have sunk like an anvil.
Okay, see, that's
great. That's from Joe.
I'm glad it made you happy. 877-301-8970. By the way, since Margery's into it, I'll humor her again. Here's some sound from an episode of the Mythbusters.
That's right.
In which Adam Savage and Jamie
from 2012.
Heineman test whether Jack could have survived if Rose had shared space on the door. And this obviously is with buoyancy in mind. Here it is.
Hang on, Rose!
With all we've learned,
I think Jack's death was needless.
Well, obviously that is not according to the research that was done by, what's the guy's name? James Cameron.
James Cameron, who was the director. He did Avatar as well, Jim.
I know what he did. It's the biggest, Avatar is the biggest grossing film of all time. And I think Titanic is number 2. And whatever. Let's go to. Can we take Cole, or do you have to keep talking about?
He said Jack had to go down. That was it. Jack had to go down and drown.
Okay.
That's what the script said. End of story.
Okay. Have you seen the scientific research he did, by the way?
Well, I've read all about the scientific research.
I know. Have you seen the scientific
research? They've done a forensic
research?
analysis with a hypothermia expert who produced the raft door for the movie, and they put people that were the same weight as.
You know who the
Kate.
hypothermia expert works for when he's not working for James Cameron? The Onion. That's where he works. Let's go to, where are we going? Let's go to, Ken in the car. Ken, I hope this is not about Jack in the door. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ken.
Well, it is a critical question. It does need to be answered.
Okay,
yes.
Go
ahead. And unequivocally, I can say Jack would have fit on that door.
How do you know?
Absolutely.
How do you know?
Have you seen this guy? He's too tall for Bilbo Baggins. That's why he wasn't in The Hobbit.
Okay.
Okay. That's right. He's not a big guy. He could have fit in the door. So why wouldn't Kate move over, Ken, and let him on?
That's a really good question.
I think that Jack was an impersonator. I really think that Jack was a very wealthy individual.
Uh-huh.
And that she was weighing in. They had done that ring ceremony. I think that she was going to claim that was going to be enough to get his money.
This is unbelievable. 2 losers, Ken in a car and Marjorie Egan. Ken, thank you for your excellent analysis. We appreciate it.
James Cameron says it's about the fact that this is a love story like Romeo and Juliet about love and sacrifice and mortality. And Jack had to die to prove his undying devotion to Kate.
Well, actually, it's his dying devotion to Kate.
Kate doesn't think that at all. They actually they've interviewed her about this.
Kate Winslet?
Yep, she knows a lot about.
What was the name of that show she was on TV last year? It was so
the mayor of
Eastham.
She was great. Easttown or Eastham or something like that.
Just fabulous.
She knows a lot about water. She spends time paddleboarding, surfing.
She does.
Yep, on boards, kites, and winds, scuba diving, the whole 9 yards. She says she doesn't think we would have survived. We've both gotten on the door. Wow. He would have fit, but the door would have tipped, and it would not have been a sustainable idea.
That's really interesting.
You know what they would have had to do to keep it up if they both got on?
No.
They would have had to take off Kate's life jacket and put it underneath the door to keep the door afloat.
Wow. Okay, Josephine in Medford, you're next on Boston Public Radio. It's our final segment of the day, so welcome. Hi, Josephine.
Hi, Jim and Marjorie. Thank you so much. Second-time caller, long-time listener.
We love that. Thank you.
I wanted to offer a very heartwarming story related to a live Christmas tree.
Thank God.
I went to McHugh's Garden Center on Sunday afternoon in Woburn and was trying to decide which tree to buy when a woman walked up to me and said, "Are you buying a Christmas tree?" And I said, "Yes." And she offered me a beautiful little bag with the name of her son, Joey Dominici, who passed away at the age of 21. And she told me that they are offering random acts of kindness, and she offered me $50 off my Christmas tree and asked me to remember her son. And I can't even tell you how much impact this has made to me during the holiday season. I asked her name is Carla, and she asked me to pass on this random act of kindness to others. So I'm doing that for her and for him. I looked up their website. It's the JoeyDominiciFoundation.org. He was 21 years old. He fought a very valiant battle with drug addiction, and you can hear it in my voice. It's really warmed my heart, and I'm telling everyone I know because they have events, and they raise money to help others, and I just thought it was the most beautiful thing when I was buying my Christmas tree at the garden center that she bravely walked around and talked to people to honor her son.
It's a beautiful story, and I'm glad you shared it with us, Josephine.
Thank you very much,
really is beautiful.
Josephine.
Thank you.
We very much appreciate that.
Thank you. 877-301-8970. So anything relating to Christmas, because it's only a few days away, or again, if you want to talk about this stupid ending to the movie. Let's, by the way, there's an where's the alternative ending from? Where's that from? Wait a second. Okay. Here is a bit of an alternative ending. Obviously, this would not have been the way James... Well, just listen. Here's the alternative ending.
That really sucks, lady!
Exactly. Now...
That's what Leonardo was yelling at Kate as he floated into the North Atlantic.
We understand what it is.
John from Easton, thank you for calling.
Hey, John.
Hi. I know everybody's joking, but I think I think it's kind of serious, the discrepancy in science. You know, I mean,
Okay.
when you're looking at a documentary like the Titanic, it has the same issues that the documentary Batman has, right? So, I mean, these are major things that should be looked into for these serious.
Thank you,
serious
John.
films.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, do you have a speculation about what would have happened?
So, yeah. No, I think that she should have moved over. Sure, right. I think that, but on the more important thing on Christmas, for the charity thing, when you look at charities, I think that youth sports. I don't think people think about it, and like lots of towns' equipment's really expensive, and it's one of those things where I don't know who's on the other side of town, but if your kids play together, you end up high-fiving each other, and it doesn't matter what your income level is or what kind of neighborhood you're from. Your kids slap high fives, and you start cheering for each other, and you start cheering for the other kids, and everyone claps together. And equipment, it is crazy how expensive it is. And if there's a town, not even your own town, but there's another town or program, you're like, hey, I think that's a good place to put money if you have a couple extra coins.
Well, John, I think the way to wrap up your call is you've made a really important point, which is Marjorie thinks it's more important to figure out if Jack should have gotten on the door than to support youth sports at Christmas. I think you said it beautifully, and thank you for your call, John. Hope you're humiliated.
Josh of all trades from Waltham says the Titanic was so long, I was ready to let go and drift off into the frozen Atlantic.
It was like more than 3 hours, right?
I don't know. It was on for a long time. But
by the way, a lot of these Christmas tree deals, as the last couple of callers said, do have a huge percentage of the proceeds goes to really important things.
Well, your
so that's
buddy,
a really nice thing.
Doesn't your buddy?
Yeah, I don't know what they donate to, but they do wonderful stuff. Boston Christmas Tree on Harvard Street. 877-301-8970. What?
When Mythbusters investigated the Titanic debate back in 2012, they actually built a Thermo-Man, a dummy made with gelatin flesh and a water-heated copper cardiovascular system. How about that?
Why don't you explain what that is, Marjorie?
I don't know, but they went through all that to try to figure out back in 2012. And now, as I said, the findings of James Cameron is going to run on National Geographic, I believe, next month.
Our new boss was head of National Geographic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Susan Goldberg. Wasn't she head of National Geographic until a few months ago?
Well, maybe she knows about this.
Maybe she does know. Maybe she has the inside story. What?
A remastered version of Titanic is going to hit the theaters just in time for Valentine's
25th anniversary.
Day,
Okay, good.
25th anniversary.
Okay, and he still doesn't get on the door in the remastered version either. John and Gardner, let's hope it's Christmas. It's on your agenda. What's up, John?
Good afternoon, folks. Thank you. The part where she threw the jewel into the sea bothered me more, Marjorie. But
that's right.
That scene there could have been improved greatly by Jack. Just should have hopped right on her, Kate, and they could have had a romantic twist on their way down and warmed right up.
We don't say hopped right on her on this show, John. I don't know if you're aware of that. We don't use that kind of expression here. Okay.
Thank
John,
you very
we
much
didn't
for
mean
the
to hang
call.
up on you. Merry Christmas, John. There.
And Jack says that if Leo had traveled on his own private jet, he would have survived. And we know Leonardo is often criticized for taking a private jet. Many of our male listeners are saying the only scene they remember from the Titanic.
I know what it is.
Which scene would that be, Jim?
Oh, go ahead.
When he sketches a naked
what a
Kate
shock
Winslet.
that really is.
Tony in Worcester is one of many men who says they couldn't get past the scene of that. What door, says Tony.
Okay, fine. Now, can we talk about shopping your house again, which apparently nobody's interested in? Let me explain the concept a little bit more, because Marjorie only did sort of a truncated version.
Okay.
The notion is not just to get a used item in your house, because you can't figure anything else out and give it to somebody else. I didn't even know about this till today. I love the concept. You look around your house, decide there is something that you already own that has particular meaning to you, that you're willing to part with, that you can share the meaning with somebody. Look at you. With somebody you care about. That's the whole concept between shopping your house. It's not like giving second class or used stuff to somebody. It's to share a piece of yourself through a book, or as you say, a bottle of wine or something like that. A copy of an old, VHS of the Titanic, something like that. Go ahead, Marjorie.
No, I was just
reading some text about the Titanic.
Yeah, so I was reading text about the Titanic. So we'll go to Fred in West Bridgewater.
So.
What do you think, Fred?
Hey, Fred.
Hi, guys.
My theory is this. I'm an Irish guy, and I remember being about Jack's age and how difficult it was to break up with women.
Sure.
I'm thinking maybe he wanted out of the relationship, and that's just kind of what Irish immigrants do. That's just
being dead generally
on the
gets you out of a
subject of
relationship, in my experience. Don't you think, Fred?
Well, perhaps, but on the subject of house shopping, as you put it,
please.
Perhaps Jack could have used a door.
Thank you. Thank you. You made Marjorie the happiest she's been in weeks. Thank you, Fred.
He needed his own
for your
door.
analysis.
Paul from Worcester points out that, you know what the Titanic was, Jim?
No, I don't, Marjorie.
It was also a tremendous machine.
Thank you. We'll get that, I'm sure.
Until it sunk, and there weren't enough left.
Thank you. A little late with that this time, but thank you for trying anyway. It's Jamie. Jamie, by the way, Jamie is our lead producer. All he does during the show is has his finger right above the button that allows for the tremendous machine, hoping that once a week we'll mention it so he can play it. This whole thing is pathetic. Luckily, the show's almost over, but we have enough time, unfortunately, for another call or two. Where are we going back there in Brighton? Who would be your next choice?
Lots of people didn't like the Titanic.
What?
I thought it was overrated and cliched.
By the way, I like. Well, it is cliched. I mean, it's like one of those sweeping Hollywood. It was cliched, wasn't it?
For a fundraiser, could Marjorie and Jim reenact the door scene on the Charles River on New Year's Day?
That's funny.
This person says they'd be the first to donate.
Okay, that's good.
Let's go to Esau in North Attleboro. Hi,
hey, Esau, what's up?
Hello, first time, long time.
Thank you.
Love your show.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I had three quick things to say, but
Please.
one of them John already took. But one thing is, in terms of Christmas giving, I'd say just give anybody a gift of Kelly Crossley's spiked eggnog, and you're good to go.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah. She's very passionate
yes.
about her spiked eggnog. I think she should start selling it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one.
I
And
think
by the way,
she
this
should.
is the brand Pennsylvania Dutch or
I think so.
Something Dutch or something or whatever it is. Go ahead.
I don't recall.
Whatever it is. Go ahead.
I'm sure you have access to Kelly. And the other thing is that if Jack had jumped on the door and survived, it would have been a Hallmark movie and not one of the biggest grossing movies of the year. So that's the biggest knock against that happening.
Well, that's what James Cameron said, the director. He said that the script called for Jack to die, and he had to die. Here's what he actually said. You guys are missing the point. The script says Jack died. He has to die. So maybe we screwed up, and the board should have been a little tiny bit smaller, but the dude is going down.
Can I ask you, thanks for the call.
Kind of a heartless guy.
Isn't that a little stupid, by the way, for the guy who's head of the movie to say the script? What does that mean, the script calls for it? So if you don't think it's the appropriate ending, isn't that what great directors and screenwriters do, is they change the script? Isn't that how it works?
I don't know, Jim. I don't know enough about making movies, but he just seems to say that that's what you have to do. You have to have, the script says the guy dies, that's it.
You know what the nightmare is? Every single caller wants to talk about Jack. Maureen, you have 30 seconds because I can't take any more of this. Go ahead, Maureen.
Should Kate have moved over or what?
Yeah. What about it?
Well, I think the door might have sunk if the two of them got on together. I don't know. But I also think maybe James Cameron decided to have Jack not make it because if he did make it, and Rose, it was a very rich girl, and once they landed in America with a penniless artist, would their love have survived?
That's beautiful analysis.
That's a great point.
That's a really good point.
That's a
Maureen.
great point.
Thanks for that. We appreciate it.
One of the texters accused Rose of stealing jewels and silver, and that's why she sunk, because he would have sunk because she had too much purloined materials on
Marjorie,
her body.
can you do me a favor? We only have 30 seconds left. I've just heard from our boss. We still have 2 listeners in Taunton who are tuned into the show. Anything you can do to get them to turn off the program? Or
okay.
Unfortunately,
We're done.
we thank you both in Taunton
Yes.
for staying tuned for this very important discussion about Jack and Rose. This is pathetic. I had nothing to do with it. I just want to be clear. We're done, Marjorie.
Tomorrow we're going to be joined by our medical
We are.
ethicist Art Kaplan, our national security expert Juliet Kayyem,
Yep.
travel reporter Christopher Muther,
Great.
transit advocates Jim Aloisi and Stacey Thompson, and a Jewish deli
so
panel
psyched.
with the folks from Mama Liz in Cambridge and Chinese in Worcester. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Mackenzie Farkas. Additional support provided by Brendan Deedy. Our engineer is John The Claw Parker. Bill Piacitelli is on the board for us today. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna, and our on-site help from the library comes from Evelyn Brito, Colin Cockrell, Angelica Marrero, and Steve Baracci. I keep wanting to ask you what's on TV, but you're not on TV anymore, Jim.
No, I'm not.
I have nothing to do now at 7 o'clock.
Well, you can. There
Channel
are
2.
whatever. There are some reruns that are really good, I'm told, and then we'll move into a new era in January. By the way, we just have a brief announcement. Marjorie tomorrow afternoon actually Thursday afternoon, when she thinks she's working at 11 o'clock, we'll be doing a briefing on the science of the door. That'll be at the Boston Public Library in the women's bathroom on the lower level.
Okay.
Okay, I'm done.
Are you done?
This is where you say I'm
then
Marjorie
I guess I'm
Egan.
done too.
You are.
I'm Marjorie Egan.
By the way, we want to thank Maura Healey for coming today.
We do.
And if you missed it, Maura Healey said she will be coming monthly for an hour of Ask the Governor right here at the Boston Public Library. Andrea Campbell said the same thing. She is the Attorney General-elect. Mayor Wu is here monthly. We want to thank all of them for doing what I think is a really important public service right here at the great Boston Public Library.
Yep.
Have a wonderful night. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Yep. Thank you very much
Bye.
for tuning in. Thank you to people that came down to the Boston Public
Thank you all.
Library. And thank you, Jim, for showing up.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.